Welcome back, guys. Welcome to Birds of a Feather on A2D Radio, live from the Real Talk Studios. A2DRadio.com. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, A2DRadio.com. First half of the show brought to you by Gibson Mayer LLC, our certified public accountants. Make them yours. GibsonMayer.com. Our Scanzano Sports poll question this week, we're talking head coaching. We've gone down the positions. We've done running back, wide receiver. We've done defensive backs, tight ends.
Quarterback.
We've done quarterback. We figure we're gonna change it up a little bit this week before we get back to the positional positions, and we're gonna go in and we're gonna talk some head coaching. So your choices this week: Bill Belichick, Sean Payton, Pete Carroll, Doug Pederson. Any of the other coaches out there you guys want to talk about? Please chime in. We love the fam. We love to talk to the fam. We're gonna talk head coaches in general. We're gonna talk Dougie P, the rise of Dougie P from the ashes. From the ashes. Really from the bottom of the trenches. And, we're going to talk some other things. We're going to have a fun segment in the second half of the show. So make sure you jump over to YouTube for the second half of the show. We're going to do, it's called No Huddle. And really, we're just going to randomly blurt out a bunch of different things going on in the sports world. And we love to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Chrome, back with Chucks. Over here in the ones and twos, Ryan the Bro Doe, Mr. I nicknamed myself.
Back.
He's back.
Hello.
His back seems to be doing better. Thank God.
It is, yes.
Ooh, thank God, buddy.
Yes.
Over here on Facebook already, David Rosca. Hello, David Rosca. Always the first comment. We appreciate it, buddy. Welcome back. Frank Vespi, sorry to bother you guys at work. To answer the poll question, I got to go 3 words. Big balls, Doug.
Of course
Dougie P. Absolutely. So, Charles. We know Charles is going to have I'm sure. How many on the list this time, Charles?
75.
13.
He's ranking like Arena Football League coaches. He's doing the Black Horse Pike School District over here. All right, so you said 13.
13. I got 13.
All right, let's run down Charles's 13 here.
Another tough one this week is it's hard to.
It's a tough one to gauge.
Depends what you look for.
It's definitely perception.
A lot of it perception. A lot of it. And so I'm just going to go, obviously, at the top. I can't go Bill Belichick at number 1. You have to go Bill Belichick, in my opinion. I mean, consistency. I mean, I know we beat him, but in terms of totality of his career, he's arguably the greatest of all time, and he's still going.
And it's not even totality of the career because they still made it to the Super Bowl again last year, and they're coming back with Tom Brady and Gronk. They're still going to have a fantastic team again this year. There's no reason to not expect them to be the class of the AFC yet again.
Yep, exactly. Number 2, I'm going to go Sean Payton. I think he has – I know he's only had 1 Super Bowl win, and that was back in 2000 – how many? Is it 2009?
9, I
2009,
believe.
I think. Yeah,
I believe
2009 season. But the thing is, he's also been consistent in terms of the Saints are always like at least a playoff contender, and in terms of offensive minds, he knows how to scheme stuff up. So he's good at that end too. And I think all around he's had Drew Brees for much of his career and success, but so is Bill Belichick. You can't really take that as a knock against them. You know, he knows how to put them in good situations. And honestly, I like how he uses his offensive system. I like how he uses his running backs. So he's number 2. Number 3 is Pete Carroll, even though I will say he's on the downside kind of. And this year it'll be a big sign of what direction he's going to go to because they are pretty much rebuilding.
They are. It's going to be really interesting.
It's going to be tough. I think if they can put together like around a 500 season, that is a successful season for them, considering the roster, their makeup.
Yeah.
Having Russell Wilson will help that team stay in a lot of these games, but at the same time, like he knows how to coach defense, he knows how to lead men. But this is now going into one of his. I forget how long he's been with the team now. It's one of those crossroads where he can either rejuvenate the team with young players, a new young core led by Russell Wilson, or he can just not connect with them at all and just hit a downslide and pretty much reach his peak. He reaches end as a head coach. At 4, this is where I put Dougie P. And I get it. he doesn't have longevity. He's only been a head coach for 2 years. His first year was only a 7-9 season, and then this year obviously he won the Super Bowl. But at the same time, if we're going off right now, you kind of have to. What have you done for me lately too? And we've seen the job that Doug Pederson has done, and we'll get into it more later in the second segment. But he's just, to me, he's now shown that he can lead men, and he's also a really good offensive mind and a really good play caller. 5, I'll go with John Harbaugh, because considering the roster that they have, he's always gotten the most out of his players. I mean, you have Joe Flacco, who's been the quarterback there, and he's way past his prime. He's not. I don't know if I'd even have him in the top 20 of quarterbacks now, and he's been like around there for a few years now. But John Harbaugh still gets his team to play, and with the roster he's had, the Ravens almost made the playoffs.
Yeah,
they came out to the very last game. So to me, that's saying something. And he has a championship under his belt. 6 and 7 are going to be surprises, and you can say that I'm projecting a little bit, and I can't deny that, but I just think these two coaches are just offensive geniuses, and that's Kyle Shanahan at 6 and Sean McVay at 7. They go hand in hand because I think they're essentially like kind of like they have different systems, but you're talking about very young coaches who have been part of great coaching trees. So they have like the lineage, but in terms of offensive minds, they're on another level. Kyle, I did a video, a 1-minute video a few days ago that came out on AUD's page. It's a play involving Marquise Goodwin, and if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. I think it came out yesterday. But it's the play designs that both Shanahan and McVay draw up are just insane. 8, I have Mike McCarthy. And even though Mike McCarthy, to me, his offense is not really that great of a system in terms of play design and just creativity, he's still a really good leader in the locker room. He knows how to prepare and get his team ready, and that still counts for something. 9 is Andy Reid, Big Red. He hasn't won a Super Bowl, but the consistency is there, and I can't knock him out of the top 10 because he's always winning. Granted, it's only in the regular season, but I felt like number 9 was appropriate. 10, I got Ron Rivera. I think he just knows how to coach defense, and the Panthers' defense is always at least good. Dan Quinn, another defensive guy, who kind of had a struggling year last year, but they came close to beating the Eagles. That was our closest game in the playoffs.
Sure.
12 is Mike Zimmer, and 13 Mike Tomlin. Mike Zimmer, to me, I think he now has a good roster. He's got us now, and last year he finally had a great roster. They got where they were at. He has the quarterback finally. Now he's got to show that he can coach that team to the next level. And then Mike Tomlin, some people might be surprised that he's down that low for me, but this is how I see it. With Mike Tomlin, he won his Super Bowl early in his career, and I think those Super Bowl wins to me were kind of like him riding the coattails of why can't I think of his name?
Bill Cowher.
Yeah, thank you. After that, when he's had to establish his own roster, his own core,
I've been saying this for years.
He struggled, and to me, when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback who's still at a top level, when you have the best wide receiver in the game and you have the best running back in the game, and you constantly choke in the playoffs, that's inexcusable to me. That's elite talent at 3 pivotal positions, and he can't get them over the hump. So to me, that doesn't show signs of a good coach. And that loss to the Jaguars last year, that shows that they were not prepared. They didn't have a good game plan. The way that they lost, if they had lost it, where it was just like a knockdown, drag-out fight where, they were exchanging leads and everything, that would be one thing. But they were behind the 8 ball like for most of the game, and they were struggling to fight back. So Mike Tomlin I think he should be out of there. I think that maybe in another season or two, if that's the case, where he still can't get him over the hump, I think he will be gone.
I've been saying for years Mike Tomlin's an overrated head coach. I'm not saying he's not a good head coach, but my biggest gripe with the Steelers is they play up to teams and then they play down to teams. They play the Cleveland Browns and it's a 13-10 or 16-10 game. Then they go up against the Patriots and it's a 34-28 or 34-31 game. And I just think a lot of times they come out very flat. And again, a lot of times it's Big Ben who's really bringing them back in these games and a lot of those games are games against teams they should be easily winning.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I've been saying for years, I think Tomlin has rode the coattails of early success, hinged to Bill Cowher after that. And to me, he hasn't done much since then. So if we're talking going into this year, I have no problem with where you had him at all. Absolutely none. All right, so I have Bill Belichick, number one, clear reasons we jumped in. I agree with you with Sean Payton. I put Dougie P at number 3.
Okay.
I just kind of tossing through. I actually was putting Sean McVay above Pete Carroll.
Nice. Okay.
I really like Sean McVay.
I like it a lot. I like it.
You made a compelling argument to where I thought about moving Carroll to 4, but I'm sticking with it because I believe that Sean McVay, I think what he did with that team last year was spectacular, and I just expect great things from him.
Yeah.
To me, I'm looking at like young head coaching in this league, and I'm looking at him and Dougie P being the guys who are going to be setting the precedents that everybody's going to be trying to catch up to and follow.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Shanahan, but I got him under Mike McCarthy. I got McCarthy after Pete Carroll.
Okay.
I mean, you just talk about the range of success, and it's unfortunate last year what happened with Green Bay, and well, maybe not for us, unfortunate, but. Yeah. It's a different team without Aaron Rodgers, and I think it's really difficult to adjust to that when you have that kind of a blow. But I still love Green Bay. Every year, Green Bay is one of the heavy odds-on favorites. And I still think that he maximizes talent. I mean, I know they've had their Jordy Nelsons and guys like that, but you look at a lot of those wide receivers, and not including Jordy, but other guys, when they've left there, they haven't had the same kind of careers.
True.
And obviously that's also hinged to Aaron Rodgers, but I also believe it's game planning to put these guys in a position to succeed. I have Kyle Shanahan after that, another young head coach I absolutely believe in, and I think that he's going to do great things in this league. I put Andy above John Harbaugh.
Okay.
Andy's got to get it done in the playoffs.
He does.
At some point, he has to get it done. I think Andy's one of the best coaches in his time, but I can't call him a great coach because he can't get it done.
Yeah.
And then I have Ron Rivera after that, and I kind of just left it at that.
Cool.
And I do like that Ron Rivera is such a great defensive mind. And even when you look at Carolina and you think they've had losses on their defense, they still seem to have a top-ranked defense every year. And I think when you have a quarterback like Cam, who the consistency at times has been questioned there, I think you need to have that defense behind him to pick up for when the offense is slacking or not producing like they should be. And it seems like Carolina every year has that defense in place and that scheme. So, that's where I have it at. Ryan, where do you got?
For me, I'll just go through the top 4. I actually completely agree with you, Chrome. Mine is the exact same. It's Belichick, it's Sean Payton, it's Doug Pederson, and then it's not Pete Carroll, it's actually Sean McVay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I'll go in more depth because people could say, from the outside looking in, oh, of course you're going to put Doug Pederson 3 because obviously you're an Eagles fan. No. Based off of the question on how it is heading into this season, it's not based off what they've done back in 2010 because obviously Pete Carroll signed in 2010 with the Seattle Seahawks move.
And agreed with that because if it was 3 years ago, I still may have put Tomlin a lot higher as well.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
No, I would too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going into this year.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, that I was actually going to bring that up too because I was going to say, 2 years ago, arguably 3 years ago as well, I mean, Tomlin was regarded as one guy under Belichick. It was Belichick with the Patriots and it was the Steelers with Tomlin. It was just those two. And over the last handful of years, they've proved to really play down the competition, number one. And two, there's just something not right with the culture of the team, heading into the playoffs as well. It's just they don't quite get it done when they have all of the players to do so and go far.
Correct.
But regarding I'll just say Bill Belichick, number one, obviously. I mean, there's no need to go in any more depth of that. If you're a football guy, you know he's number one until he retires, unfortunately. Number two with Sean Payton. And people could say, oh, yeah, I mean, the last handful of years, they've either been in the playoffs or they've missed. They haven't been able to get, the job done on the defensive side of the ball. That's all well and good. When you just look at what they do well, and that is the combination of Sean Payton and Drew Brees on the offensive side of the ball, behind Belichick and Brady, it's Sean Payton and Brees.
Sure.
Since I've been alive. And just seems like ever since Sean Payton started there back in 2006, there's been something special with the quarterback and the coach, which you don't see a lot to that level. I understand they've only gotten one Super Bowl, but they constantly are regarded and respected as one of the greatest in the last 25 years, quarterback and coach combination. I mean, I think they're in a very tight-knit group.
Absolutely.
Yep.
3, Doug Pederson and why he's above Pete Carroll. Number 1, Pete Carroll, when I talk about culture with Tomlin, Pete Carroll seems to me, over the last handful of years, the culture of the Seattle Seahawks has gone tremendously downhill.
That's fair.
It seems like, and I understand, I'm all for players first, but there's a fine line of having players get their say and having the players control the entire organization. And I understand Pete Carroll doesn't control the entire organization, but the players should not have any more control than the coach has. I feel like the culture of that organization has gotten out of hand. And to be honest with you, they have been going downhill. The Seahawks were projected years ago, 5, 6 years ago, 4 years ago, honestly, to be the team, the next dynasty to replace the Patriots. They didn't do that. Yeah. They got one Super Bowl. That's unacceptable with what they had set up for years. Mm-hmm. Doug Pederson, and I understand he's heading into his 3rd year as a head coach. I understand that. It's a small sample size. His first year was not great by any means. But with the simple fact that he lost the MVP of the entire league last year, headed into the playoffs with Nick Foles, no disrespect to Foles, but it was Nick Foles, a quarterback that was thinking about retirement shortly before that. He took a step back, put his ego aside, went back to what Chip Kelly did well with him back in 2013. He adapted, and he not only beat the Falcons with Nick Foles, absolutely blew out the Vikings with Nick Foles. He outsmarted one of the best, if not the best coach in the game of all time. That's Belichick. I understand when people say that Super Bowl is all about Nick Foles. Nick Foles is great. No taking anything away from that. But the guy who put Nick Foles in the best position to succeed was Doug Pederson.
Right.
That was his show.
Yep.
So I just think under that premise, he deserves to be top 3. And even if people put him 4 or 5, the fact that he's top 5 only 2 seasons in shows how good of a head coach he is.
Yeah.
And as much of a gap that is between him and his mentor at this point, this early.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Malakovic says, not Dougie P, LOL. All jokes aside, it's Bill Belichick. I know Dougie and our birds just beat them. But until it happens again, I still got to go with the GOAT.
Mm-hmm.
We don't agree with you, Greg. Or I disagree with you. I'm sorry. We do agree with you. Frank says also, Brodo has 75 different nicknames. Where's mine? We'll come up with a couple, Frank.
You got to get to that level, Frank.
I call him
You got to get to that level.
I call him Vespi.
Greg says Tannehill has some talent, obviously, but I think he's a long-term option for an NFL quarterback. Oh, he says he doesn't.
Oh, I think he was going off he's talking about Adam Gase. I believe the quarterback.
I like Gase. I do like Gase. I don't think you can gauge what Gase is going to be off of last season. You lost Tannehill. You have to go with Jay Cutler. I think it was a lost season, honestly, for Miami and for his coaching tenure. I would like to see what he can do with Tannehill for a full season. I still like Tannehill. The guy just can't stay healthy. I mean, it's another Sam Bradford issue. Maybe not quite on the level of Bradford, but he seems to always be hurt. And that team has underachieved a lot, but that's under different head coaching. So I would be interested to see how that team would produce with Adam Gase or with Tannehill and Gase together. I didn't even realize that Frank Gore signed with Miami either until the other day.
He's still playing.
We were probably waiting for him to decide at the last minute, I'm just going to go to Indianapolis again.
Or, one of the greatest Eagles of all time, Frank Gore.
One of the goats.
In hindsight, I bet he wishes he
the
didn't make that
goats.
decision, huh?
Maybe. Who
But
knows?
But no, and the thing with Dougie P, you touched on a lot of it, Ryan. I mean, again, the adversity that team faced. So you brought up the first season 7-9, right?
Yeah.
You talk about a team. That team, I don't even know if they should have been 7-9. That was hinged on the back of Dougie P's coaching and a high level of play from Carson Wentz, a lot earlier than anybody thought. And I believe that with DeFilippo and with Doug Pederson, that coaching him up and preparing him in a very short period of time where they didn't realize at that point that he was going to have to be the starting quarterback as quick as he was, that speaks a lot of volumes to A, having the right quarterback coach in place, and B, Dougie P knows quarterbacks. He knows quarterbacks and how to coach them. And I think a lot of that should hinge on Dougie P's coaching. And then you got to see now that's level 1. Next level is level 2. Did we think they were going to win a Super Bowl? Realistically, no, not in the beginning.
Nope.
But you saw how that season went down. The faith that he had in his players, the schemes that they did, the adjustments he made at the second half, which we never saw with Andy Reid
Or Chip
Kelly.
Nope.
The adjustments that he made in the second half, if they weren't the best in football, it's 1 and 1A. But you have to take all that, and then the adversity of putting the right guys in the right positions to succeed, including Big V, who stumbled out of the gates. But they schemed properly to give him a second level of protection when need be, and they just coached everybody up to be in the right position.
I always talk about with head coaches, and you hit the nail right on the head, I always talk about willingness and capability to adaptability. In games, before games, coming off of a big loss, a big win, even going into the fourth quarter, going into the second quarter where, it's not even the halfway point. To be able to discover a serious problem, whether it's a scheme, whether it's a situation, a matchup, whatever, and be able to adapt and constantly, whether it was, regular season or postseason or in the Super Bowl, Doug Pederson did it constantly. He constantly did it. He did it at the end of his first season too, which a lot of people didn't really realize just because the team was going downhill.
Sure.
But I completely agree with you. And I feel like a lot of people don't give him justice that first year because a lot of people blame him for the reason why they went downhill, which is so idiotically wrong because the real reason was the fact that the offensive line goes downhill and the fact that Carson doesn't have offensive weapons at all. And he's a rookie that was trying to force the issue.
Yeah, Jordan Matthews.
So I completely agree with you. If you don't have Doug Pederson who was willing to take the risk, willing to adapt, hell, they could have been freaking 5'11". You know what I mean? They could have been much worse. They could have been much worse.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Travis Downing says, my Finns took an L last season. They did, but I think the future's bright with them as far as their head coach goes. But they got a lot of work to do as far as kind of building that program back up. It's been a long time since Marino. Believe me, I grew up a Marino guy, so
I'm sorry,
it's my
Travis.
favorite player ever. It's been a long way. You've had the Cleo Lemons, the Jay Fiedlers, the AJ Feelys. You had the Gus Ferrats.
They had Pennington.
The Trent Greens. Chad Pennington was actually really good
He
for
was
them,
good,
but he
though.
had concussion issues.
Yeah.
He was probably, in reality, since Dan Marino, Chad Pennington was probably the best quarterback that the Dolphins had. You had the Dante Culpeppers
Oh, yeah.
coming
Winners
off of
passes far,
injury.
yeah.
What a mistake
Yeah.
that was by the Miami organization to they had a chance
Completely
to sign.
forgot about that.
They had a chance to sign Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Brees, regardless of what he may say now, it is a known fact, would have signed in Miami, but Miami was more concerned with the shoulder injury than they were with the ACL, which in hindsight was a
terrible decision.
I can't be mad at them. It was tough, but oof. Kevin Godwin says, real question, better be a ground-up coach. Better to be a ground-up coach, moving up through ranks, special teams, defensive coaching, then coach, or a long-term player turn coach.
That's interesting.
I say ground up coach.
Ooh.
And the reason why I say that is because when you're a ground up coach, you go and you learn things through people ahead of you, and you pick up certain things and you're able to develop. I think with, for example, you have I forget what the exact tree is. So excuse me for the lack of lack of names I'll be able to throw out there. But Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, two guys again that we agree are two very young head coaches who look like to be set up to be really great, in the future. The successions they've had going up from the ground up, the people they've learned under. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan, the son of Mike Shanahan, he's adopted his father's zone run system, but then has also evolved it. Sean McVay, same thing with I forget what tree he came off of. But my point is, when you go from the ground up, you learn things from different coaches, from different staffs. You're able to connect and put pieces together. As a player, sometimes, and I'm not saying that being a player turning a coach is bad, or there's no example of success. What I'm saying is, when you're a former player, sometimes those players have a difficult transition going from being a player to being a coach, because it's not all the time that you're able to take those skills that you have and put it on and teach it to someone. Being a player doesn't mean necessarily you're a good teacher or a leader. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, let me say this, because you look at the Mike Singletaries of the world, right? Definitely didn't work out. Probably a great football mind, just didn't have the chops to be a head coach.
Yeah.
But it's not even just football. I look at sports, and it's a tough question because it always hinges on the people you're around. Because Doug Pederson is a perfect example. He played behind Marino's. So he was able to basically work with Marino every day and under Don Shula. Then he went to Green Bay with Brett Favre. And then he had Mike Holmgren as a head coach to learn from, and all those great coaching staffs. And the whole Mike Holmgren tree that basically was around him all that time. Then he went to Philadelphia, and he had Andy Reid again. And he never Rodney Peete, I think, was ahead of him. But Rodney Peete was a serviceable quarterback. He was decent enough, but he had the ability to sit and learn back, with Andy Reid at that time. When in hindsight, and I was not a Dougie P proponent by any means in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know this.
I don't think any of us were.
But when you really look, he only had so many years of actual coaching experience. But in a way, he's kind of been a coach. He's been prepped and groomed to be a coach all these years, because he was never going to play ahead of all these guys. But he was always in a position to learn from great, absolutely wonderful football minds. And that's why I look at it where it's just about who's around you. I mean, are you going to have the coaching staff? If you're a ground-up guy, you got to have the guys above you who are willing to kind of prep you to take their spot for when they go to the next spot. There's a lot of guys that have egos that don't want to lose a job.
Yep.
And you have to be susceptible to learnings. And same thing I think with players. I think a lot of times great players tend to have an ego about them, and I don't mean that in a negative way necessarily, but they're just so used to having a certain frame of mind, as opposed to when you're like a second-tier guy or you're a backup, you're learning just from a different view. Like, you're not the guy who's expecting to be out there every day, so you absorb almost like a sponge everything else. So I think for me, it's just about the coaching tree that's around you.
There's two levels to this, and it's a good question by Kevin. It really is. I number one,
Kevin wants to be on the show one week. Maybe we'll open up the couch for him.
Kevin's very, very smart.
Yeah, we'll open up the couch for you, Kevin, close to the season.
For me, it's to answer his question. It depends solely. It's tough. It's a good question, like I said, but it depends solely on who the person is. I mean, it does work with some people that are former players. It does work with certain guys that come up from the ground up and don't play.
Definitely, yeah.
So I think there's really no way to define the better route. It's all depending on, not only who, the type of people they are, but who they end up with. For example, you said it. You hit the nail right on the head. This is the second point. You bring up how a lot of people weren't necessarily thrilled with the Doug Pederson hire. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. But the one thing that kept me from hating it was the point you touched on, was that, okay, he has a lot of experience based on of who he's been around. Not to switch sports, but the kind of reason why I didn't panic when Gabe Kapler was signed was kind of he's been around. You know what I mean? So I think that definitely helps. And obviously, he's taking the knowledge Doug Pederson has, and taking the knowledge he got from all of those organizations and working under, there's certain players or coaches, and he's used them wisely.
Yeah.
Now, is every player going to do that, or every former player? No, because number one, they may have a bigger ego not to do it, or two, they may not be lucky enough to work with an Andy Reid and the type of coaches that Doug Pederson did.
And I think, to your point that you just made as well, I think guys who had the chance to be around different organizations and learn from different coaching trees tend to succeed a little bit more if they're a former player, because they've seen a lot of time. If you're a guy who travels around or you're moved around a lot of times you're on some good teams and you're on some bad teams. You've seen the good and the bad, what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And a lot of times from an organizational standpoint down to on the field and game planning and scheming. So I think it gives you the ability to see things from all perspectives and different perspectives.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because I was going to bring up earlier, I was going to point at the Patriots organization. Not Bill Belichick, but you see whether it's defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator, when they leave and they go to other, teams, it doesn't necessarily pan out. And I was going to bring up your exact point on maybe there's a level of, since they're only with the Patriots, and over the last handful of years, many years, they've only seen what's good. They really don't have to face the adversity. They don't have to adapt like a normal team would, that goes through the slumps for 3, 4, 5 years, for example. Maybe that's actually a negative for example, a Matt Patricia heading into Detroit for the first time. You know what I mean? Josh McDaniels, if he leaves, or if he was going to leave. I can go on a list to where, just because they're a coordinator.
Well, we've already seen Josh McDaniels make another stop. That wasn't fantastic.
That's true.
Denver.
Yeah.
That's true. Exactly.
He's already had the first try.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it's based off of the more you bounce around and you get to really understand what the correct move to do is or not, or also see different examples of how to meet success. I think that's huge for an up-and-coming coach or a former player.
I totally agree with that. Mitch Cohen says he's being biased, but he says Dan Quinn. Greg Milakovic says, how's that Super Bowl working for Dan Quinn? Sorry, it was too easy, LOL. Greg being a troll. Travis Downing says, don't remind me about Breeze. Sorry, buddy.
Sorry,
it was a tough day for Miami. Greg says, I think the NFL is different than the other sports where you have to put the time before you get the head coach spot. Very rarely do you see an ex-player turn right into an NFL head coach like you would see in the NBA or an MLB. Fair point. Dougie P got around there pretty quick, though. Dion's on. Dion says, what's up, fellas?
What's up, Dion?
Right now, best head coach is the one that held up the championship trophy when it was all said and done.
Yeah,
especially
Dion.
with what he had to endure losing many key players early on. Hands down is Dougie P, then the hoodie. Kevin says, with that being said, talking about the question and all, he thinks Mike Vrabel is going to do well. I think Mike Vrabel will probably be a pretty good head coach, and he was a guy who played at a pretty high level. I do like Mike Vrabel a lot. I think he's a really smart mind. Mary says hi.
Hi, babe.
Hey, babe. Hey, babe. Greg says, I agree. I tend to lean towards defensive-minded guys earlier in their careers. Sure. What do we got over on the
YouTube?
The YouTube.
We got SJM's been chiming in.
What's up, YouTube fam?
He says, what's up,
SJM.
fellas? Top 10 coaches is so tough. I typically agree with you guys. Tomlin is a hell of a coach. His weakness is who he has chosen as coordinators. That, and he doesn't have a hand enough in his defenses. He gives a bunch of names.
Well, how long did he have Dick LeBeau for?
For a while, didn't he?
It's one of the greatest coordinators of all time.
And then that offensive
Todd
coordinator, Todd Haley, that wasn't good.
I think he's
got
had
him out of the building.
Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't good in the fact that Todd Haley clashed with Ben.
Right.
Got in the way
but I
of
feel like part of the job is having the right guys in place.
Definitely.
And I feel like
they pick them.
Unlike with Dougie P, and maybe Dougie had say, but I'm pretty sure that there was probably some suggestions of guys because he didn't have as much experience. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think in that situation, a lot of times guys are maybe suggested, and then you make your final say on things. Mike Tomlin unquestionably has enough respect in this league that he's going to get the coordinators he wants. So he's the guy in my eyes that's putting these guys in these positions, with the exception of Dick LeBeau because he was with the organization forever. Mm-hmm. But you keep Dick LeBeau when you're there. I mean, he was amazing.
Yeah.
I will bring one thing up really quick, and it might actually be my biggest worry heading into the Eagles season, and it's actually going to be even more of an element to reveal how good Doug Pederson is. Hopefully, where you're going to really see how good he is.
I think we talked about it last week, but go ahead.
Frank Reich not being here anymore.
Yep.
I mean, that's big. That's
yeah,
big.
yeah. We're gonna see.
Yeah, we said Reich, and because we talked about concerns last week.
Oh, okay.
We mentioned that Reich and DiFilippo not being here, both of them, can be a potential concern.
I don't think Flip is bad. I think Carson at this point, he's done what his job was here to do.
Yep.
Frank's going to be a tough test, though. We're going to have to see.
Yeah.
But I think they have the right guys in the place to kind of transition that, and I'm not really concerned about that. It could be a concern.
Yeah, I think it will be. Before I continue with SJM's comments, just to piggyback off of what Kevin said about Vabro doing well, I think one of the reasons why he's going to do well is because the offensive coordinator he named was Matt LaFleur.
Yeah.
And Matt LaFleur came from that Shanahan-Gruden tree that I talk about with Kyle Shanahan and all those coaches. So you talk about having the right offensive mind to put in there for Marcus Mariota and that running game when you have the duo of Derrick Henry and Deion Lewis. So I think they're going that coaching staff is set up to be really good. And their roster is pretty damn stacked. You look at their roster, like Tennessee could win that division, and that includes over Jacksonville. I'm saying right now. I'm not saying it's guaranteed. I'm saying I don't be surprised if
Tennessee's going to have a good team this year, man.
They're going to have a good team. But SJM, he gives names for his coaches. He says Belichick, O'Brien, Peyton, Peterson, McVay, Carroll, McCarthy, Harbaugh, Zimmer. Those are his top coaches in no particular order. He also says, so many new head coaches every year. Longevity is extremely difficult. Eagles fandom aside, Jason Garrett isn't bad. I hate to say it. And then I started to debate with him about saying how Garrett actually is bad.
Jason Garrett.
Jason Garrett's bad. He says O'Brien has done very well given injuries, and I know his division is weak, but despite the Osweiler mess, they are always in the mix. To me, the thing that holds Bill O'Brien back, before we get into Garrett, because I know it kind of caught you off guard, Ryan. With Bill O'Brien, the way he manages his quarterbacks before Deshaun Watson, it kind of really irked me. I don't think he managed the quarterback room very well, especially when you talk about the season they were on Hard Knocks. It kind of showed a lot. And Bill O'Brien's a good guy, but I question his ability to handle and manage quarterbacks. But he talks about Garrett again. I mentioned how Jason Garrett's very controllable, and that's the only reason why he's still there. So Jerry Jones can control him. And then SGM talked about Howie doing an incredible job surrounding Carson with Reich, DiFilippo, and Doug. And how Chicago took note and did the same thing this offseason surrounding Trubisky with talent. And he did also mention Miami did also have Patrick Ramsey.
Oh, God, yeah. Miami had I have to come up with the list. They have to be at over 20 quarterbacks at this point since Marino. And Marino retired in 99, so we're not even 20 years past that.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. I know at one point, and it wasn't even 2010, I think they were at 14 or 15.
Yeah. I literally just searched Miami quarterbacks. Third thing that comes up on Google. Miami quarterbacks since Marino.
So how many's on that list?
Let me see. Let me just.
Is the entire list there?
Let me see. Give me 2 seconds. I'll get back to you.
I might even be able to name most of them in order.
That's crazy.
Let me see.
I know Jay Fiedler was the first after him.
Freaking pictures.
Jay Fiedler. Oh.
Real quick, Deion Brown did ask any thoughts on possibly bringing in Navarro Bowman. I say no because I don't think Navarro Bowman has a skill set to fit our system and what we're looking for. He's if you're talking about for depth, sure, but I wouldn't if we did bring him in cheap, I still wouldn't expect anything from Navarro.
So what do you think about like bringing Ellerby back or like Jonathan Casillas? He's still out there, right?
John Casillas?
Yeah. I looked him up earlier because I was looking at running back or linebacker depth
Junk
a couple days ago, and he was a name that was
He
thrown
doesn't
out there
strike me. I gotta look him up. Junk is his.
My list is ready for you.
Go
of
ahead.
the Dolphins quarterbacks. How many
I
are
have
on
it
there?
by year. Since Dan Marino, there is 1,
I want to see how many I can name.
2, 3. I mean, there's some
I don't
seasons
care
where
if they
there's
played.
3.
I don't care if they played 1 or 2 games. I probably can name most of them.
Well,
All right.
This is going to be a
I
long
want to
one.
hear
Let me
this.
give me
Yeah,
a
go
second.
ahead.
Read the chat while I'm counting,
Okay.
Charles.
Keep going
This
with
is
the
going to be a
YouTube.
long one.
Greg did say Dion, that's my guy. I wanted Navarro last year when he came available. Would love him now. Ross
I mean, I think he would be a low cost at this point. It
He
might
would
be
be a
worth
low
a shot,
cost.
but I've heard him linked to the Raiders a lot. I do know Roddy McLeod worked out with him in
Well,
the offseason.
you're talking about Bowman still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, Bowman did play with the Raiders last season.
Yeah,
after
he's
getting
been
released.
tied. He's been
So
tied a lot to
maybe-
possibly going back to the Raiders.
Yeah.
Don't tell me the number. I'm
Oh
going
my
to
God.
guess a number first.
Roscoe says
Or
Eagles
do you
will
have the
win.
whole number?
I'm ready for
Okay,
you.
go ahead.
Roscoe says Eagles will win back-to-back Super Bowls with Wentz. Greg says, but David, what about Foles? Laughing face, laughing emoji.
I'm going to say 19.
18.
18. Okay.
Oh shoot!
18.
You were
Let's
really
see
close.
how many
You're
Dolphins
only off by
quarterbacks.
1.
How many
Holy crap.
Dolphins quarterbacks can I name?
So
okay.
let's go. What do you want to go by the years? So since
I don't
99?
know. I'm going to I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them all in
No,
order.
no. If you did, I would worry about you.
But I'm going to try. So Jay Fiedler.
Yes.
I'm definitely not going to be able to go in order. Cleo Lemon.
Let me find Mr. Lemon.
He's definitely on
yes,
there.
he's here.
I'm just going to go. Trent Green.
Trent Green. Trent, where are you?
He's there. Gus Farrat.
He's there. Gus Farrat. Yeah. Hello. Hello, Gus.
Holy
AJ
crap.
Feely.
Yeah, he's there.
We all know AJ Feely's there.
Jesus, these freaking names.
Dante Culpepper.
Hello, Dante.
I think Brady Quinn played for Miami, but I could be wrong about that.
Nope, no Brady.
All right, so let me take him out then. All right, Pennington we said already.
Everything we said, yeah.
What's the one who's Chad Henne.
Yeah,
There you go.
there he is.
Chad Henne.
There he is.
Ryan Tannehill, just because we clearly know Ryan Tannehill. Jake Cutler, we know Jake Cutler. So that's 10. Doing pretty good so far.
You're doing good. You're
This is
doing
where
good.
it gets interesting.
It is going to get really
'Cause
tough
these
now.
are people where I'm like, who the hell is that?
Matt Moore.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right, so that was
He's still in the league.
isn't he the backup for like
He's back up somewhere now.
Texans,
Maybe. I'm
Feel
trying to
it's
think of
Texans.
who he signed with.
Oakland?
I'll look it up. Just keep going.
Charles, we
Matt
need you.
Moore. Who am I missing now? That's 11.
I mean, you've gotten all of the guys you should get, so I will tell you that.
Yeah, there's a couple like real like minor doozies out there.
Like I don't even know who these guys are, and some of them have started like one game.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I know they've had like third string guys and stuff like that have played that I'm sure I can't get them.
the rough years where they've got 3 quarterbacks.
All
within
right,
a
so
4-game
so
span.
I'm gonna just all right. So I got 11. That's not too bad.
All right, so I'll
You're-
just go
I
right
know
down
you're.
the
I know
list.
there's gonna be at least 2 more where I'm gonna be like, of course. And then there's gonna be guys I'm like, I don't know
I'll
who the hell it is.
I'll name the guys even you named. I'll just go right in order from 99 all the way down.
Okay.
So we go 99. It was Dan Marino and Damon Heward.
Damon Heward.
Heward, excuse me.
Heward.
That's right. Damon Heward was actually number 11. He was actually the guy who took over for Marino originally.
2000, it was Damon Heward for 1 game, Jay Fiedler for 15 games.
Okay.
Jay Fiedler.
Yep. Jay
That's the first name
Fiedler,
I threw out there.
2001, all 16 games. You're
Yeah.
not going to see much
Yeah.
of that for the rest of this list. Jay Fiedler for 10 games and Ray Lucas for 6 games. in
Ray
2002.
Lucas. Oh God, I forgot about Ray Lucas.
2003, Jay Fiedler for 11 games. Brian Grease.
Brian
for 5.
Grease. Brian Grease was one I should have got too.
That's
That's
2004.
Bob Brian. It's Brian Greasy. That's Bob Greasy's
Greasy.
son.
Oh my God! Yes.
yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah.
yes.
I forgot he went there for a cup of coffee.
2004, Jay Fiedler for 7. This is Jay Fiedler's struggling
wow.
now. AJ Feely for 8.
AJ Feely.
This is a guy I'm like, okay, who are you? Sage Rosenfeld.
Sage
Oh,
Rosenfeld.
Sage Rosenfeld.
I forgot about him.
Yeah, me too. 2005 is Gus Farrat.
Gus Farrat.
And then back with Sage for a game. 2006, Dante Culpepper for 4. Joey Harrington for 11.
Joey Harrington was on it. Joey
Wow.
Harrington, I'm pretty sure, won the the Thanksgiving Day turkey MVP for the Dolphins at one point too, I believe.
And then our friend Cleo Lemon.
Cleo Lemon.
For one.
I just love his name.
I know.
I always like Cleo Lemon just because I love his name.
Mr. Lemon.
Cleo.
Now over in 2007, we have Trent Green for 5 games.
Okay.
Our friend Cleo Lemon
Cleo
for
Lemon
7.
again.
And John Beck for 4.
I forgot about Beck. Yeah,
Sounds
I
like an
wouldn't have
actor
got
on
him off.
daytime television.
I would not have got him off the top of my head, but yeah.
Then we've got, a rarity, 16 games for a quarterback. It is Chad Pennington.
What year is this?
2008.
Okay. So you said Chad. All right, so Chad Pennington.
Then in 2009, Chad only had 3 games, and then it was Chad Henne.
Chad Henne. Yep.
So you're the Chads. 2010, Chad Henne for 14 games. Another winner. Tyler Thigpen for 1.
Wow.
Forgot he was on there too.
Another winner. And then Chad Pennington for 1. Chad Henne for 4, and Matt Moore for 12 in 2011. Tannehill, all 16 games from 2012 to 2015. 2016, Ryan Tannehill for 13, Matt Moore 3, and Jake Cutler last year for 14, Matt Moore 2. That is the Dolphins.
Actually, Tannehill's been pretty healthy throughout his career. Why
Yeah.
did I think he was hurt?
Relatively.
Did he get hurt in college?
That
Am I
don't
wrong
know.
about
don't
that?
follow- Yeah, I'm not sure.
When people,
Well, he played a different position.
to be
Yeah.
honest with you, Crum, I just look at Ryan Tannehill. I just think mediocrity, not injury.
I
Yes.
got to say, there's a couple I'm
Mediocrity.
disappointed in myself for not getting. Joey Harrington was definitely one I should have got. Brian Greasy was one I should have got, and Damon Heward I should have got because I remember him backing up when Marino
Forgot about Greasy.
when Marino first had his major injury. Damon Heward was the backup, was the guy who came in for him. That's crazy. Damn. That's a rough road, Miami fans. God damn. That's my AFC team, dude. So I feel your pain. Like, I mean, I grew up a Marino guy, so I always root for them still. That's a rough road, though.
That's almost as bad as the Cleveland quarterbacks.
Oof.
That might be right behind them. Like,
Yeah,
it might be Cleveland and Miami.
Well, we'd spend the next 3 hours talking about those.
Travis
Yeah.
Downing, I am so sorry, buddy. I feel your pain. But yeah, so Dougie P. Let's get back to Dougie because we got about 10 minutes left before we take a break. I mean, we actually touched on a lot of what we were really going to dig into. It was
Yeah.
really Dougie P's kind of rise, right?
Well, I will bring up as well when we briefly talked about how a lot of people really weren't excited or even
I hated it.
People were panicking.
I hated it.
I
if
was
you
very
weren't,
underwhelmed.
if you weren't in
I
the
was very underwhelmed.
original Birds of a Feather, we still have it. It's like our group. That's
Yeah.
kind of where the premise of the show originally kind of started. We just started a group with a bunch of guys that we knew and linked our friends up. I absolutely destroyed the Dougie P. I was pulling clips of Rugen and Frank and everybody shitting on it, and I'm like, this is exactly what I've been saying. They're speaking through me right now, or I'm speaking through them. And I mean, I tell you, a lot of people didn't like it, but I think Charles will vouch. There's nobody that hated Dougie P coming in, and hated Howie Hero coming in more than me. I don't think it was possible that I could hate anything. The only thing I've hated more in professional sports
here we go.
history was Mike Matheny.
And he's gone!
Which he's gone! Great week. Hashtag fire Matheny went to hashtag fired Matheny. Great week for me. We'll touch on that when we get to our no huddle.
Yep.
But that being said, I always said the best thing that could happen is for somebody to make me eat my words, and I've never been happier that both guys did. And when you talk about, and again, I think I was very naive. I didn't look at the pedigree of guys that he's learned from, the tree, like the Hall of Fame tree that this guy learned from, whether it was players on the field, coaches, and even not just Mike Holmgren. It's the whole coaching tree that he was around in Green Bay. It's crazy. And yet, do I think he kind of got a fast pass to an actual head coaching job? Absolutely. I don't think it did him any favors that they were saying he was only calling the first half of games. But listen, Dougie P came in and he showed.
First off, look at the last game he was a part of with the Chiefs. It was the disastrous clock
management.
Didn't look good.
Yep.
And that was one of the games where they had asked him. They were like, did you manage that game, or was that Andy? And he was like, no, it was me. I'm like, Doug, why didn't we lie? Could we lie for 5 minutes, Doug? I wouldn't be mad at you. You can reveal it 5 years later. It was you.
My God.
It could be a documentary. question for you guys and the people at home. Go back in time to around that era. Who did you want as the new coach of the Philadelphia Eagles?
You're gonna laugh at me.
I probably won't because I might probably share
I
it.
was-
Ben McAdoo.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's
I
not
was-
who I wanted.
I was running the very small bandwagon. Not bandwagon, but I was leading the small charge for Deuce Staley. That was my guy. But other than that, like I had other maybes. Like I was like, maybe Adam Gase. I didn't want Ben McAdoo because he looked like a goober. I didn't want that.
Just can't trust the face.
You can't trust the face. when with a face like that, you know there's trouble.
I'll give you mine, and it was actually two. It was one who I actually thought was realistic, another one who was kind of like a fantasy booking. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The guy who I really wanted was Sean McDermott,
Okay.
especially
Okay,
coming
yeah,
off of
yeah,
that
yeah.
season, with the Panthers. My fantasy, Lovie Smith.
Yeah.
Listen, I know now I'm foolish.
I wanted Tom Coughlin.
You
I
wanted
thought
Tom-
I wanted Coughlin. I think
yeah.
Coughlin would have been good here. I think he's another guy that can be a player's coach, but I felt like coming off of Chip and kind of whatever that was, you needed a guy with experience that has won, that could come in and kind of settle the ship down. And, obviously Tom ended up transitioning over to, a front office position, and he's done amazing with Jacksonville over there. So
with a front office position. Yeah.
in a lot of ways, I feel like my desire to have him was justified because of what he's been able to do with an organization that really was all over the place for a while. But that being said, Dougie P was on the bottom of my list. I wasn't a huge McDermott guy, but I wouldn't have minded if they
Yeah.
ended up bringing McDermott
Because
in.
of the ties and
Yeah, but
The reason
if we were going with a guy with previous ties, McDermott was my guy.
Well, the reason why I wanted him, number one, like I said, because what the Panthers had done the season before.
Yeah.
Two, and then I've completely flipped my perspective of head coaching searches and hirings. I wanted a defensive-minded head coach because I thought there was a better chance we build up a great defense than find a great quarterback. Because at the time we
still had Bradford.
we had Bradford.
Yep.
So I'm
under
thinking,
contract.
I kept saying on all the shows, I said, we just got to build up the defense, and then Sam Bradford will score us 20 points before he gets hurt, and we'll be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my mindset, especially because we hadn't had a great defense for years.
Yeah.
I didn't know that literally the next couple months we would get for Carson Wentz.
Well, I mean, I didn't know Wentz would be the guy, but I think the idea had been floated
didn't
that they
either.
might try to move up to get a quarterback before we had a head coach. And I liked the idea, too, I liked what Coughlin did, whether we love him or hate him with Manning. I think he maximized Manning.
Yeah.
Respect
And
Coughlin. You have to respect
I
Coughlin.
felt like he would have been a good guy to kind of give the welcome to the league kind of a deal to Wentz. That being said, in all honesty, I don't know that Coughlin would have been a long-term solution anyway in hindsight.
He wouldn't have been.
No.
So I think they obviously, I think clearly they went with the right move. And, again, I'm okay. I was okay with being wrong with that one. Big
I'm
time.
Definitely okay.
Totally
with being
okay
wrong
with
that
that.
one.
Greg still won't admit it. He's wrong.
No, it's fine, Greg. I mean, we can all be spiteful. It's fine.
Dion says, Greg, you remember him? He got knocked out. He got knocked out pretty hard on the sidelines, running out of the pocket. He's number 5. I don't know who he's talking about.
I'm not sure. Pat White. I think they mentioned Pat White.
Maybe Kevin White. He said, Pat White. Yeah,
Pat White.
said he related to Kevin White, the wide receiver taken by the Bears a few years back.
I don't know.
I don't know. Good question.
I
We'll
could
look it
look
up.
during break.
Sixers JT, he actually agreed with me. He said, well, first off, going back to when we were going down the list of Miami quarterbacks, he said, Jesus, Dante Culpepper was my first favorite NFL player. Then he says, I remember asking my dad if the Eagles could trade McNabb for him. And then he said, Lovie Smith, I was such a big Lovie Smith guy.
Let me say this. Before Dante Culpepper destroyed his knee, I think Culpepper would have absolutely had a better career than McNabb. Mm-hmm. I think Culpepper was a really good quarterback. But he's another guy that a lot of his game was premised on his legs, and you take that away. That was a massive injury that he had.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it ruined his career. And that was just poor decision making on Miami's part in the end.
But yeah,
I will fully admit, by the way, when they made that decision, I was on the Culpepper train. I thought the same thing. I'm like, you're talking about a guy who his arm could fall off at any point when you come back from a major injury to your throwing shoulder like that. I would rather take the risk. To me, there's more of a track record of guys with leg injuries coming back and being close to the same. I mean, fuck, Marino tore his shit, and Marino was a pocket quarterback for like 3 years at the end of his career. He was a statue there. But then again, in hindsight, Marino had possibly the quickest release in the history of football and never needed to move out of the pocket.
Yeah.
So, but when you're young and you want something, you find every reason. Give me Dante.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
And I was totally wrong for that.
When he was in his prime, he was elite. Like who was it back? It was Peyton, him, McNabb, who were the top young quarterbacks around that time. Tom Brady hadn't hit his stride yet.
When I was a kid, man, watching Culpepper and Randy Moss and Chris Carter together
that
was fucking awesome to watch.
Yeah.
It was magical to watch those guys.
Yep.
If you guys want, when we come back from break, there's a couple of different things I found this morning, like newspaper articles and like reports right when Doug Pederson came out. I'll bring them up because it's funny how things change in just short,
that'll be good.
couple years here. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, let's go to break.
Yes, sir.
If you are on Facebook with us or you are on Periscope, we appreciate you joining us on Facebook and Periscope. Secondly, please make the jump. Is the link at the top of the page, Ryan?
It always is.
It always is. Yes, please. Click the link at the top of the page. We'll take a brief break. We're going to come back in the second half. We'll continue to talk head coaches. We'll talk Dougie P. I think we're going to talk a couple of the free agent stuff that's come out, Le'Veon Bell. And then we're gonna start a new thing here that we hope you guys participate in called No Huddle. So thank you to our first half sponsor, Gibson Mayer LLC, our certified public accountant. Make them yours. GibsonMayer.com. Live from the Real Talk. I almost said the other one, Ryan. Live from the Real Talk Studios.
Real talk.
Real Talk. This has been Birds of a Feather. We'll see you guys on the other side. Welcome back to the second half of Birds of a Feather, live from the Real Talk studios on a2dradio.com. We are live on YouTube. If you made the jump from Facebook and Periscope, thank you for making the jump. We're going to continue to talk about whatever you want to, fam, because you guys drive a2d.com. So, our second half of the show is brought to you by StreamSmart, streamsmart.com. And our Scanzano Sports poll question this week: who is the best head coach in the NFL heading into the 2018 season? Bill Belichick, Sean Payton, Pete Carroll, Dougie P. We had a nice list, of other head coaches that we went through. We talked a lot about Dougie P and kind of his rise. And I know Ryan's going to give us a couple little fun headlines from back when Dougie P was hired. So we're gonna reminisce about those wonderful days back in the day. We're also going to try to talk about some of the free agency. Well, really, primarily one, the Le'Veon Bell, and Brandon Cooks signing his extension today, which was a shock to me.
I have a lot of things to say about that.
So we'll talk about that, and we're gonna go no huddle. We're just going to throw out some random sports things. We're going to talk some shit today, guys.
Just go.
So, Ryan, you were looking up some fun stuff for us today from back when Dougie P was hired.
So I'll start with, and then I'll finish off with the man that's always brought up almost as a joke in this, but I'll finish off with him in a moment. But
okay.
I'll start with ESPN.
Okay.
They had him ranked as the worst coaching hire of that offseason.
Okay.
Okay. Hugh Jackson, mind you, was number one, the best according to them. And obviously they're still a work in progress, but we want to rate through 2 years. Hugh Jackson, Doug Pederson, I would flip those, but that's just me.
At the time, I liked that Hugh signing, though.
I did
too.
I can't be mad at them making that the number one at that time. It hasn't played out that way, but.
So I'll read you the paragraph, their synopsis on why they had him ranked sixth.
Okay.
Last. So, Doug Pederson, Philadelphia Eagles. Pederson spent most of his 10 NFL seasons as a backup quarterback, 3 and 14 as a starter, before becoming a high school coach and then an assistant in Philly under Andy Reid, who brought him along to Kansas City. Pederson has spent only 3 years in the league as a coordinator, all under a head coach who is a dominant offensive voice. Maybe Pederson has the, quote, emotional intelligence that owner Jeffrey Lurie is looking for, and that Chip Kelly lacked. And, of course, maybe not. But after Coughlin pulled out of the chase and McAdoo canceled his second interview, Lurie didn't have much to choose from and figured Pederson might bring a little Andy Reid football back to the link. It feels like an ultimate reach.
Well, Ben McAdoo did us a huge favor by pulling out.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate you.
With his mouth running still. Fucking dope. That's my first F-bomb of the show. I've been pretty good with it today.
I'm bringing his quotes up in No Huddle later. So
yeah, we'll bring that up later. Okay, so I didn't disagree with those points at that time. But, again, obviously they weren't wrong as far as the emotional kind of a connection thing. Absolutely. Hey, buddy.
Hi, Godfather.
Here you go.
What's that? I can look it up now if you like.
I did a video because Ralph said that he's a Dodger. Somebody said that he was officially a Dodger. What's up, fam?
I didn't hear that yet.
Good.
I don't know.
Tom Arnone joining us.
That's just what I heard.
I've seen nothing yet.
Could be him trolling.
The latest updates I've seen, it's that they're still the front runners. That was an hour ago.
The Dodgers still are?
Yeah.
Listen, I did in the video, and if it breaks, whenever it breaks, it's coming out. Because Matt Quintak should fire himself fucking immediately, okay? Because this is the guy you targeted from day one. If you can't land the guy you targeted from day one, who the fuck can you land? You were with him the whole time in Baltimore. You were there. You know the guy. McPhail's got a relationship with the guy. John Middleton, too. Stop talking. Stop talking unless you're taking all the goddamn shares of this organization. Because there's 45 fucking owners. I'm sorry, I don't like to curse this much because I feel like you have no intelligence. But I'm fired because there's certain people in this company or this station that think they can curse the whole time on air, and that's cute. Listen, you got to have some backing if you're going to use language all the time, and I feel like I always bring the backing. But when you got a guy that's your guy, how do you not get your guy? Because of 6-0 Sanchez? Listen, everybody throws 100 now, Daddy. I can take a boat to the Dominican tomorrow and find 20 guys that will hop on that goddamn boat and come back throwing at least 95 and higher, okay? I'm tired of like a guy throws heat. Did he throw strikes? He's 20. See ya. Listen, I said it a million times. I'll trade prospects for proven talent any day and twice on Sunday. When the ages of 26 or under, I'll do it every day. If you miss on this guy, and you let Irvin in the 8th backdoor your ass, if you know what I mean, okay, that's a problem. Really. And I know you're a cards guy, but you get it because you're essentially, you like the Phils. You get it.
Listen, you're talking about guys that throw over 100 miles an hour. Jordan Hicks on the Cardinals throws 105. He has no control over it whatsoever, and that's a problem. I agree with you. Young guy, young talent. But I don't hate if they don't get him. There's other opportunities. This is simply a rental. He's still going to be out there, and you give up no assets. The Dodgers have no intention of bringing this guy back if they land him. You give up no assets. You go out. I still think you could. First of all, Franco's having a pretty damn good year. But if you're going to move, go get a Moustakas. Go out and get another pitcher.
Yeah, but you're not even playing him at third base. You're not even playing him at third base.
No, because I think if they get a Moustakas, they're going to move Franco for an asset, whether it's a bullpen
No, that's fine.
Or something.
I'm saying this genius. If he's playing shortstop, Franco's still your third baseman. You get Scott Kingery to hell out of shortstop because, with all due respect, he's not a big league shortstop.
I agree. I don't disagree with that.
But according to analytics and Gabe Kapler and the geniuses that wear freaking Uggs around Citizens Bank Park and have Harvard degrees, assume that he's a shortstop because some analytical shit said he was.
Yeah.
I can't do it anymore. I can't. Listen, we're first place. I said in the video, we are first place, and I'm fired up Matt Klentak, but he should fire himself. I love the young core. I love the young talent, but I'm not Mr. Manny Machado either. Because I think Manny Machado is a little bit of a crumb too. But, who isn't, I guess, when you're a star unless you're Mike Trout. But, the thing is, it can't be your guy that's been your golden goose since the second you got into Philadelphia and you not be able to land him.
But my thing is,
you won't give up enough to land him.
But I think he still is the golden goose. But they don't need to have the golden goose right this second. They're still in the driver's seat to get him in the offseason and not give up any of the assets. And I'm surprised by seeing how many of really valuable assets they were willing to give up for a guy that,
who's
all
valuable?
intents and purposes, they were giving up 2 or 3 of their top prospects.
Who? Ortiz?
See
ya. Where can I drive you to? You know what I mean? J.P. Crawford. I love J.P.
Well, J.P.
But see ya.
Too, yeah.
The arm, whoever the arm is. Bye. See ya. I got the best arm in baseball. I don't need more. I got the best arm in baseball here, in my opinion.
No, I
got a guy who throws freaking wiffle balls, at big league hitters that can't even smell them. He throws wiffle balls. It's unbelievable.
To me, it's not. He's still their guy. I don't think they look at it as we have to land our guy right this second. Yeah,
I just love him. I gotta let you guys back to what you're doing. I had a point of Chuck's because we're deep into baseball nonsense here.
Well, listen, in fairness,
and
it's
Chuck's
coming up anyway.
Chuck's just staring at the computer.
Baseball nonsense is coming up anyway. Chuck's even said we should talk about this. So
I love him. He's just like
you
that.
should talk about
He's
it.
locked in.
He's taking selfies with Matt Kemp, so people are running with that. Oh my God!
Yeah, that's probably where Ralph's getting his thing from. Is they're all saying, "Oh, he's taking selfies with Matt Kemp. He's welcoming him. He's welcoming him to the Dodgers."
All right, so we have the video on file for when he does become a Dodger. So if he does become a Dodger, it's there. I just saw I didn't see anything.
Listen,
I just was driving and
everything I've seen up until an hour ago has said that the Dodgers are in the driver's seat, but Baltimore is not stupid enough to close off the bidding. So the Phillies and the Brewers specifically are still in on Manny Machado.
We'll see
that
how it
being
all
said,
plays out.
you don't get him. Dude, they could go out and get him in the offseason, no problem.
No, that's true.
And that they're in the driver's seat for.
I just don't like being backdoored by LA again. Yeah, I mean, I'm getting sick of
But-
Magic
it's
Johnson
not,
owning me.
But it's not like it's not like a LeBron thing where it's a guy's signing somewhere for 4 years and that's off the table.
No, I get it. But like Magic
talking
Johnson still
3.5
ruined my night at the
months.
pub. Like he ruined my night at the pub when I was 10, and the HIV thing came out, and he ruined my steak. So from day one, the steak was bloody. I got it rare done. And next thing I know, I got blood. I think I got AIDS.
You're terrible.
I'm a terrible human
But
being.
listen. I'm telling you, it's not a big deal. It's not anything to get concerned about. And here's the difference. I am not 100% convinced. I said earlier, if they get Britton and Machado, I think it puts them in the driver's seat in the NL. Here's what the Dodgers are doing, and in a weird way, I wouldn't mind seeing it. The Dodgers are doing everything that the Phillies did in their run. They're getting rid of every asset to go all in now. If they don't succeed, and unlike the Phillies back at that time who were in a much better position to win in that window, the Dodgers still they're in, and this is the equivalent to the East versus the West. Guess what, homie? They're fine when they get through the NL, but they got the big boys in the AL. They got the Red Sox. They got the Astros, or they got the Yankees. That Machado does not make them better than any of those three teams. And I don't even know if it makes them better than Cleveland. Any of those teams can still handle them even with Machado. So you're talking
disagree.
about guys like Justin Turner and Matt Kemp. This is their all-stars because that's the core of their team now, and all of them are in their 30s. They're in their mid-30s. They're mortgaging their entire farm system to go in now, which to your point, I don't hate it if it happens and it succeeds. If it doesn't, you just screwed yourself big time. Because I absolutely believe that Kershaw is on the downside now. A lot of mileage on them on that arm, brother.
Oh, yeah, the bullet, the gun only has only so many bullets in the chamber.
They're not re-signing him. They got Seager coming back next year. I think the point was made earlier with everything that they have invested in Seager, and that was by Greg, who popped through earlier. They have everything invested in him. Machado's not going to be back there next year. So if they want to go all in and try to do it now, great. Because guess what? I hate the Dodgers. If they're going to sacrifice the next 5 to 7 years of their organization to try to win now, and it doesn't happen, I'll be happy as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't want to see the Phillies start doing that stuff. They have a great core now, but they have to have something in place. And I feel like for them to get him now, especially with what the Dodgers are
They're
offering.
not giving up nothing. You're not giving up Moniak. You're not giving up Hazley. You're not giving up. You're not giving up your big boys. Because one of the two arms is going to go, so you still got one of the two. You're not mortgaging your future because your core, your big league team are puppies. You know what I mean? The guys that are up here are babies.
Here's the thing,
So
though.
you're not mortgaging nothing.
Here's the
you're
thing,
just
though.
saying, hey, all you're saying to your fan base and to the rest of the NL is, hello, we're going to be here.
Let me
Not
ask
that you're
you-
not doing it now,
Let me
but
ask-
it separates you.
Let me ask you a question, though. We're talking about for 3 months of a guy, right? The Phillies could have a successful run right now for the next 5 to 6 years. Would you rather see that stretch out to 10
He's
years?
26. He's 26.
I'm talking for this year. I think they're in the driver's seat, but he's not 100% guaranteed. But if you're in the driver's seat to get him in the offseason and not have to give those up for just 3 months, I don't hate it if it doesn't happen.
I got you there, but you sort of want him around, so you think you got a better chance of signing.
But my point
the
is,
Dodgers aren't letting him out the door, boys.
listen,
if he goes to LA,
my point is,
hold on, if he goes
to
to LA,
say
you
that
think
they're
Magic's
not
letting him out the
making
door?
to say they're not making a sizable offer for him and an effort, I think is unfair to them. Now, if you're saying they're trying to lowball the Orioles to try to steal him for nothing because he's walking out the door anyway, that's different. But the Phillies put what they consider their assets are on the table. The difference is the Dodgers made their number one prospect, who just in the fucking futures game crushed 2 home runs. Once they made him available, all bets were off. That's what the Orioles want.
But my issue is that, and I'll leave you with this. There's no way in hell that Magic Johnson and the Dodgers organization are going to rent him and not back the brink up for him in the offseason. There's zero chance.
I disagree.
Oh, you think they're that dumb?
You
think they're that? I mean, I hate the Dodgers too, but you think they're that dumb?
I absolutely think
baby.
that that's what's going to happen.
Listen, if he goes somewhere in the offseason, to me, it's been New York.
Where's he going to play next year?
Oh, to me, it's the Yankees.
No, I'm saying where is he going to play if the Dodgers sign him next year?
Oh, he's signing with the Yankees next year.
No, but I'm saying if he signs with the Dodgers,
Plays third
let's
base.
say, you got Justin Turner at third base. Talking to Dodgers here.
I know. So
You said you don't think that Magic's going to back the Brinks truck up for him.
He has
insisted.
to.
First of all, Machado's insisting on playing shortstop. You got Seager coming back
No,
next
he
year.
hasn't. He said, well, I'll play wherever you got to play me. He's made that clear. He
Yeah.
said, I mean, that's
He'll say that.
he's got to say that.
For
but
3 months, he'll play wherever you want to play. But when it goes going forward, he wants to be a shortstop. He's made that very clear.
Well, he's also, his best friend plays for the Yankees.
I don't think he's. I think he's going to end up with the Phillies.
No, listen, I hope you're right. And I hate the Yankees, hate everything they represent, but to me, they can offer just as much, if not more, than anybody else. And he has a relationship with a guy already there. Listen, to me, the season isn't over if you don't get him. To me, I'm tired of talking about guys and hearing that we're front runners and then getting our asses backdoored like we've been getting.
Brother, welcome to being a Cardinals fan. How many years have I fucking
know.
saying that?
I know. It's upsetting. I expected today or tomorrow to really feel good about this and show a sign that, hey, we're a big market and we're going to start acting like one. Because right now, Carlos Santana and Jake Arrieta are really good signings. But they're not, hey, we're a big market and we're going to act like one. Nothing they've done yet. Now, I'm fine with it for the first couple years. But you're at the point now when you're winning and you're ahead of schedule, you got to act like you're ahead of schedule. Right? And if that's a reliever, if that's another starter, if that's a Hamels, whatever, and I don't love Cole Hamels at this point of his career, I'm just making a point. You got to act like you're in first place in your division, and you owe it to your fan base. You owe it to the players on that baseball team to go land a superstar right now, because the guy's right in front of you. He's on the table. He's gone by Wednesday. Just give something else. What do you got to give up else? Because the only way you're going to get him to sign here is him playing here. That's factual. I might be in by myself because I know we disagree on this, which is awesome. But I think it's the only way you get to keep him. I think if he goes, you're crazy. If you think he goes to LA and he walks out the door, we're done.
You're talking about sending a message to the fan base. By not landing Machado, to me, doesn't send a negative message. You can
absolutely
still,
does. It does. No. My GM with big-time pockets and big-time prospects was overmatched by a team that doesn't have better prospects. That's factual. The Dodgers do not have better prospects overall that they can match on this deal that we can.
Here's the thing, and
look at the pipeline.
You know this. In the history of
baseball, we're giving up our number one prospect, too. People are missing that.
You're going to listen to me. In the history of baseball, people could throw out 2, 3, 4, 5 prospects, but when it comes to an organization and when they've talked about the breakdown of why they've made certain deals, it's always been that one prospect out of the package that they covet. If the Dodgers have the prospect that the Orioles absolutely look at as this is going to be the guy that we're going to build around, and from everything I'm saying, that's exactly what the Dodgers are giving up, then guess what, brother? You're behind the 8 ball regardless of what you throw in there.
Not necessarily.
Then unless you're most of the time. And that's been proven in the history of the game. When you go back and look at transactions, and guys really, grow up, Peter Pan.
Mickey
Moniak.
Put him on the freaking table then. Put your number one pick on the goddamn table with your best prospect in the organization, who literally before he came up, it's J.P. Crawford.
But if that's not what the Dodgers want, and they want to go out and get this kid from the Orioles. If that's not what they want, and they want this kid from the Dodgers, and the moment his name was put on the table, that's when everything started changing. It's clear that is the target, and that's what they want.
But grown-ups figure out a way to get it done on your end.
Brother.
You make the call and say, hey, you make the call, you make it a fucking buffet table. You say, what do you want? What do you want? That's what you got to do. At some point, you got to say.
Doesn't work that way, brother.
Listen, if we were old, I would completely agree with not giving up players, your young talent. When your core are babies, Mickey Moniak might never play in this organization. I'm being real with you for a minute.
No,
you have an all-star center fielder. Who's he beating out? Adam Hazley, who I like a lot, might never play in this organization. Okay? You know what I mean? So you got to move some of them at some point. You have to. Now, you're right. If that's the guy they covet and that's the only guy they want, which I find very hard to believe that you can't come in with more, though.
I don't at all.
No, because they coveted 6, though. They want 6, though. We weren't willing to give up 6, though. So guess what? 6, though, whatever the hell your name is, put him on the table. That's all you got to do. You got to match it. You cannot let him go to the Dodgers and think that you're some kind of goddamn hero in the offseason, and now you're going to swoop in. Not going to happen. Because listen, Magic Johnson will offer him more money because he's not going to give up prospects and lose him. There's zero chance.
I disagree.
Oh, my God. Then the Dodgers should fire their entire organization then. then we agree. But you can't, come on. You think they're renting for 2 months and let him go?
Yep.
He's a
Oh,
transcendent
no way.
talent, Chrome.
Absolutely.
I love you. That there's no shot of that happening.
I absolutely believe it.
Listen, I hope you're right. I hope they waste all the prospects and they don't sign them. I just, I don't know. I'm fired up just because I'm tired of losing. Out on guys.
If Sixto freaking Sanchez is the thing that keeps us from a transcendent talent and to really completely start this whole process again and make us serious contenders this year a year early, I'll tell you right now, Sixto Sanchez better be transcendent himself.
But you don't know that he is the guy that they wanted.
All
That
you
was
have to
prior.
do. All you have to
No,
do.
my point is he may not be that prospect over what the Dodgers are offering. So you're assuming that just because
why
you
you add
heard
Moniak.
from the Phillies organization that that's what they wanted doesn't mean that would make it a done deal.
But Moniak and Sixto, with what you have, is a done deal. They can't
I
match
don't know that it is. I don't know that it is.
I understand none of us are in the room. We don't know.
I wanna
the
be in the
clear
room.
cut. Well,
I wanna
obviously,
be in the room,
yes.
too.
If we were in the room, then deal would be done two freaking weeks ago. To be
Why
honest,
can't they just sit on the A2D couch and work this out in front of all of us?
Yeah, why not?
I'll line up the prospects to give away. And I like Mickey, and I like Hazley, and I like these kids, but they're not untouchables. If the Dodgers are telling you that their best player in the organization, who's a puppy, is an untouchable for Manny Machado, why are we then making guys untouchable? Because that to me, there's hardball, and then there's a time where you realize, oh shit, we're going to lose out on this guy. So guess what? You make the phone call and you say, hey, you know what?
Listen,
whatever, and you start adding pieces into it.
when you start talking about this, you're preaching to the choir because
know.
I am a fucking Cardinals fan. Again, fire Mo. That's the new hashtag. We got fired Matheny. Now we need fire
Yeah, he
Mo.
talks like this rock
because I
now, too.
sit there and I watch this guy hold on to 6 outfield prospects and 7 pitching prospects. And guess what? Out of the 13 of them,
2 pan out.
2 of them are going to work out. They hold on to guys like Carson Kelly, who, when they finally bring them up, they covet them as untouchable guys. They kill their market value. The Marco Gonzalez's of the world, the Luke Weavers of the world. I've fucking seen it and been through it for years. The Colby Rasmus's of the world.
It's all about,
believe me.
when you're a bad organization like the Baltimore Orioles, okay, and I really am going to leave you with this, okay, and your farm system isn't where it should be, right? You're looking for numbers. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You're looking for numbers. So if you can give a 6 for 1, it's going to win the deal if they're legitimate. Now, not all 6 are top 25 prospects, but 3 of them are. 3 or 4 guys being your top 30 easily. If you give up 4 of your top 30 and 2 other guys, it's a done deal. There is no way in hell they're turning that deal down. So, hey, Matty.
I don't make that move.
Put your big boy – oh, absolutely do. Put your big boy pants on and act like it. Because like you said 13 prospects and maybe 2 work out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm talking about the same thing. When the prospects I'm giving out, maybe one is. But the question is, who's ready to come to the big leagues now out of them guys? None of them.
Let me ask you this. In that Phillies run when they started moving prospects to bring guys, how many times did they make the wrong decisions on the guys?
They made
to
more
move?
right. More right than wrong. Every prospect that Ruben Amaro gave up ended up stinking.
and
Stinking.
they were in a different stage. You cannot
Not just
compare
Ruben. I'm going before Ruben, too.
Eddie.
Would you agree that they were in a different stage in the organization? They weren't a team that was up and coming that came out of nowhere that sucked for years. When they were trading away prospects, they had a deadline. They don't have a deadline right now. If they can go out and get these guys that are nowhere close to being in the big leagues,
I don't know. The Gio Gonzalez's, the Carlos Carrascos of the world, they were pretty big prospects at the time.
and how did that pan out?
They moved those guys, and they got old, and those guys are fucking all-star players.
But you cannot compare that situation to the situation we're in right now. You can't. It's two completely different
Sure
situations.
I can, because the core was still young at that point.
It does. When I'm talking about the major league club in that time, the team had won.
You're in a similar phase. When the Phillies started doing that, it was the 05, 06, 07 season.
Okay.
You're in this similar phase now because that's when it's literally almost a mirror image because they started bringing in the guys like Jim Tomes and veteran guys to implement with that young core to help develop. It's literally the exact same stage when they started doing it last time.
My whole point is that when you make a series of moves, something that Matt Klentak clearly cannot do.
And
he's
I'm not
all
a
talk,
prospect
talk,
guy,
talk,
by
talk,
the
talk.
way.
No, I understand.
I'm not
that.
like, oh my God, we got to harbor our prospect.
When you're
I fucking
actually
hate that.
when you're actually willing, like Ruben Amaro, to actually make moves instead of talking about make moves, sure, there's going to be moves out there 10 years later that you look back on may not have been great.
I think what we're going to disagree on is you guys think that they should do it right this second. To me, I think they're a year away before they start making those kinds of moves, particularly, and I understand that we look at Machado and we say he could be a generational guy and this and that, but I think they're a year away before they need to do that stuff to really set. A lot of teams are in first place. That shit happens all the time.
Yeah, but all the time. Then you finish what you started.
I don't. All right, I'll say this. I don't see them as a World Series winning team this year.
Well, I mean, it's baseball, so I'm not.
Anything can happen.
Yeah,
you're right.
I'm a big believer in.
But I think there's a lot of big dogs left that they got to jump the hurdle, and I don't think they're ready to do it yet, even with a Machado.
Well, Machado wouldn't be the
Now,
only
if they
signing,
went out and
by
got,
the way. He wouldn't be the only signing.
But I'm still looking at. I'm sorry. I still don't put them in the class of that any of those AL teams I listed. I think that.
No, I mean, that's fine.
I think
but
that any of these teams in the NL are still going to get steamrolled. So to me, from the Phillies, they're going to have a very long, sustained run at this point with the way this team is looking, and they are going to have a lot of very valuable chips to continue to feed that and to keep the organization plenished for going beyond that. I'm looking at they have the way I say it is they start moving things out now. You run the risk of being a 5-year window as opposed to having the chance at a 10-year window. And that's what I want to see for the Phillies, which is why I say this offseason, I don't think they need to, this trade deadline, they don't need to mortgage everything for one guy yet, especially a guy that they have a good chance to go. I do agree with you, though. If he plays here, that will help your cause in the offseason.
The last thing
we don't disagree with that.
We don't. My main gripe isn't the fact that, yes, they need to do it this year. Like, listen, I told you before the show when we first got there. And, Charles, we'll get to you in a second, buddy. My whole thing was that the fact that 2 months ago, I agreed with you, Crum. I was like, there's a slight chance they got it. But as a Phillies fan, I didn't know how serious this team was.
Sure.
So I look at it, and with Klentak and now, like all of these guys, and Middleton saying, Machado. The amount of times that they said, this is going to be the guy. We're going to go after him. We're going to pursue him. We're going to pursue both him and Harper in the offseason. When you keep talking about it.
That's your point you made, though, in the offseason.
No, Crump.
You made the point, though.
Okay, but does that eliminate them going after him in the trade deadline when they've been rumored to for the past 2 seasons?
But the way that I'm looking at it, I don't think they're not going after him at all. But I don't give everything up. If the Dodgers are going to mortgage everything, go for it. Have fun at it.
But again, I'm not saying they're not going after it. But what Tom and I are saying is that, sure, they can go after it, but at the end of the day, they're not mortgaging anything.
Yeah, I don't think it's a lock. I don't think it's a knock to McClintock if they don't land him. It is what it is.
The guy, all the guy does is talk. That's all he does.
We're gonna aid to D on this one. We're gonna agree to disagree on this.
Absolutely. Can't talk. What it's all about, boys. I don't care. I just want to come in fired up because I'm tired of fucking losing guys. And I don't care about prospects.
I'm thrilled with losing one guy this week. So.
Yeah.
That was great. It's a great week for me. Great stuff, buddy.
Good stuff.
Look, Charles, and we got the baseball out of the way now.
Yay! Good stuff.
Oh.
Half an hour. That was good, guys.
Yeah, we had to get that off our chest.
No, it's been 3 months since Tom's been on a show.
I did say when he told me you were coming in, I told him have a headset ready for him if he wants to hop on. So you're good. Yeah, we had to get that off our chest. We haven't had a fight in a while, Tom. We had to go at it.
Too bad we had no popcorn.
That was a love affair. You're right. That was just sweet flirtation. So back to Dougie P's headlines.
Oh, Christ.
Oh,
Jesus.
yeah.
Well, I X'd out of that article about 3 hours ago.
That's funny.
Oh, no. The thing I was going to say, going back to that ESPN article, anything they said, it's not off base. I mean, sure. I mean, on the surface, on paper, it's not the flashy pick as a head coach by any means. But it just shows. And then I'll go to the second guy, who's Mike Lombardi. Constantly. I mean, he said it not even his first season.
Yeah.
Didn't he say it his second?
Yeah.
Heading into the Super
Heading
Bowl
into the
season?
Super Bowl season, yeah.
It's like, dude.
Yeah, he was still shitting on it, yep.
So it just shows. I mean, God, everyone's a rookie at some point. And the guy, for him to go from kind of a laughingstock as a head coaching hire to beating the best coach arguably of all time in 2 seasons, it just shows. It really does.
All time is in our franchise.
No, I'm talking about Bill Belichick.
Oh, you're talking about
We-
Bill. Okay,
yeah.
I got lost for a minute. I thought we were still talking Dougie P there.
No,
I
no,
agree
no,
with
no,
you.
no,
I
no.
agree with you. Absolutely. That's another one that people shit all over back in the day.
Yep.
So you never know, guys. These guys work out. And again, we all have our opinions on it, but there's a lot of things we don't look at. In hindsight, with Dougie P, I go back and I'm like, you know what? There's a lot more there to the base of that hiring than I really gave him credit for, and I take it back, and I'm happy to do that. We got a Super Bowl out of that shit.
So NFL contracts, Charles?
Yeah. This is what Charles really wanted to get.
I feel like there's going to be another argument here. I know there will
Charles,
be, actually.
this is your moment, Charles. You said that you had a lot to say about the Brandon Cooks extension today, which before you do, I know you're going to go on it, so we're going to let you rant on it. But me and Ryan, I came in and we said Brandon Cooks, the extension surprised me when it popped up. Took me a minute to process it. Not that I don't think he's a guy that's unworthy of it, but coming off of the season that he had, I don't think it was. I thought it was a little loftier of an extension than I would have expected for him to get at this point. But nonetheless, I don't think it's a terrible move for them, and it's another really strong young, wide receiver asset for them to keep around Jared Goff. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't hate the signing from them, but at the same time, that is a lot of money for a wide receiver who I don't even think is a top 15 wide receiver.
That's a fair point.
And they're going to be against the cap at some point.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
So their investment over 5 years, it's 5 years, $80 million. Their long-term investment in this guy, and I didn't see the guaranteed contract or guaranteed side of it. I had to look that up, but it's just it's like you said. It caught me off guard because I'm like, this is who you're going to invest in long term.
Yeah.
They just have young guys on that team that they're gonna need to resign, much like the Vikings, where they are all in on this season. They are all the guys they signed, and they brought in. They are all in on this season. They want to make it work for this season. I'm just surprised that Cooks is one of those guys that they're signing for 5 years.
I just don't think it was a need for them to have to give him that extension now.
Yeah.
It was just a little bit strange to me. And again, I didn't really expect – not that he had a bad year last year, but I don't think he necessarily lived up to expectations.
It wasn't a bad year. I think people I know some people were expecting him to have a great year. I thought he was going to have a good year. So for me, his season with the Patriots was as expected for me. But a lot of people overhyped him. A lot of people thought he was going to go absolutely nuts in New England. But the way that offense is structured, they're not unless the only time they really had that dominant deep threat where they really just chucked it up to was when they had Randy Moss.
Oh, for sure.
But when you have Randy Moss, you're gonna have to do that. But obviously, Brandon Cooks is no Randy Moss. He's not someone you can filter your passing game through.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't think he was going to be that good in New England, and then now he comes over to LA, where he is in this scheme. In this scheme, he's going to be what Sammy Watkins was, and Goff and Sammy Watkins, for all the success the team had, were never on the same page.
Oh, I agree.
They were never on the
That
same
was
page.
a very disappointing year for Sammy Watkins.
And it was
had its moments,
yeah.
but
And was it on both of them? Yes, it was on both of them. A lot of times we know it because when you have a quarterback, a lot of that deep threat, is all about chemistry and timing.
I don't know if that's necessarily his strength, which is my issue. I don't think that's where you needed to focus. That whole deep threat throwing game, like
exactly,
it's an asset in there, and obviously they want to have, a strong, established guy proven by going out and getting Sammy Watkins last year and getting Brandon Cooks this year. But my thing with that is, again, it's kind of to what you were talking about. My extension of that is like, I don't know that that's Goff's strength. So
It's
to
not.
kind of make that kind of a commitment to a guy that they haven't even stepped on the field yet, especially after seeing the kind of year you had with Sammy Watkins last year,
Yeah,
it's concerning to me.
it is. I think if you're talking about wide receivers, I would go Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp as more important pieces to the
I like Kupp.
offense.
I like
too.
Kupp a lot.
I like Kupp a lot. They're more important receivers in that offense than Brandon Cooks. Now, granted, you can't understate the importance of a deep threat in general to any offense because that does lift the top of the defense. That a deep threat will always have their place in any offense, no matter what. But it goes back to what I said. Long term, 5 years, $80 million. That's surprising to a guy like Brandon Cooks, who has shown he is just a deep threat. Like outside of that,
I mean, you turn around, but like, and again, do you need to pay a guy like that when you've seen that the Eagles were able to bring in a Torrey Smith, who
exactly.
didn't have the most fantastic year, but Torrey had his moments and his leadership that he brought in, and he's a respected veteran. Who you bring in a Mike Wallace, who's had much better numbers, and for all intents and purposes, Mike Wallace, I think, will probably have a much better year this year. But you didn't have to commit a ton of money to guys like that.
Yeah.
So did you need to do it with a guy that you haven't seen yet?
I would say no, you didn't have to do it. I mean, if he comes in this upcoming season and has an absolute monster year,
I still don't know that he needed all that though.
Yeah, you didn't, but you sign him to an extension maybe mid-season if he's tearing it up.
Yeah.
But 5 years, $80 million, that's a lot. And
even now, you want to sign him to like a 2-year extension or something at that point, and just to give him a little show of faith. And then if he starts, then next season you can talk about renegotiating the contract and extending it beyond that. If you get what you expect out of him, that makes more sense to me than just saying, "Here, brother, here's 5 years."
Yeah.
I don't even know I don't remember what the dollar amount is on it. Nitro Freak, our buddy, he is on Saturdays. Kyle's on Saturdays. The Hooligans. Make sure you guys check them out. He says that Cook's contract's brutal.
Yes,
he got knocked in the next Sunday during the Super Bowl, and then they paid him that much. Jesus.
He's still sleeping.
I agree with that.
As far as I know, he's still sleeping. And he got 18
Well, he
mil.
woke up to a nice payday. But, no, I agree.
Ryan, because I'm going to get into a spiel about this situation and how it's linked to or compared to Le'Veon Bell's contract. But before I get into that, I want
one
Ryan's,
deserving and one not, and it goes the opposite, the total opposite ways that it should have. Yeah.
Well, I agree with what you're saying. I'm waiting to fully disagree with what Charles is about to say with Le'Veon.
Oh no.
I don't.
Because you and I have clashed on this before.
No, but surprisingly, the way my stance is, I don't think you're going to disagree as much as you think.
Oh,
surprisingly, but I think it's a fair and understanding point. But go ahead.
So Le'Veon Bell has agreed to play the franchise tag out, and then he's going to become a free agent next year. Last year, according to him, in Pittsburgh. I think the deadline passed for the extension. Yeah. So, take it away, boys. Go ahead.
I'll let you break it down first, Charles.
So, this is. Now, let me preface this by saying, because I know we had a talk in here before with Paulie about, why would you sign a long-term contract to Le'Veon Bell when he's going towards the twilight of his career. He's 27. So, and I totally understand that. And I'm not here to say that you need to sign elite talents to big contracts, especially at the running back position where they obviously hit a wall earlier than any other position. I think that's understood, and you're not going to get me to object to any of that. They do hit the wall 30, and you need to be careful when you have a running back that is 27. If you're a team, you need to be careful about what you're investing in. And I totally understand that the Steelers were hesitant to do that. They offered their best offer was 5 years, $70 million. So that's the same length as Cook's, but $10 million less total over the lifetime of the contract. And I think it was, I forget how much was guaranteed, but it was less than half of it guaranteed from what I remember. Now, this is what I have an issue with, and it's twofold. And I went on a Twitter rant about one of my points this morning because I can't reading all the feedback that people say online. It really gets me mad because my first point that I'm going to make is I get that people don't want to invest a lot of money into elite featured running backs because teams have shown, the Eagles and Patriots have shown you have a running back by committee.
Right.
That you have a good running back by committee, that'll get you there. So why would you need to invest in one player? And,
Right.
and that's totally fair. I have converted and I have converted to accepting the fact that running back by committee is a total legit way. It's a new way of the league, and that's perfectly fine. What I'm saying is, even if you have a running back by committee, you still need a good running back by committee. You can't have a stable of average guys. Would you guys agree with that? Like you can't have a Jonathan Stewart pairing it with an Isaiah Crowell.
Well, let's look
Correct?
at what the Packers are doing. That falls under that category, to where it's like running back by committee, but they're all average at best. I do agree with you.
Yeah, they're average at best. You can't have an average stable of running backs and expect to be very, very successful. The running back position is not a premier or prime position in the league anymore, but it's still impactful. And the way I like to analyze it and compare it to, it's like a multiplier. When you don't have much surrounding them, when you don't have a quarterback, you don't have an offensive line, that running back, the multiplier is going to be very minimal. You're not going to get much, even if you're an elite back, because you need a quarterback to run that offense. You need an offensive line to run behind. So no matter how good, you can have Barry Sanders behind the worst team, and he's not going to be able to help that team succeed. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you have pieces in place, if you have a franchise quarterback, if you have a good O-line, that running back, the multiplier, will increase that offensive success by so much more because that gives that quarterback and that offensive line a deadly threat. So it's not to say that the running back position isn't important anymore. And that's what I keep hearing online and keep seeing online. People have been knocking Le'Veon Bell, saying, like, why would we give him money? We can just easily replace him. I'm sorry, but replacing an elite talent isn't as easy as people make it out to be. They think that they can go in the draft and in any single round they can find a running back. But they forget people in the draft and draft analysts and people who are in the scouting community who do this every year, they agree that the average fan doesn't take into account that there are numerous running backs that are drafted in the middle to late rounds that people forget, that they don't talk about. Yet they push that aside and they easily forget that those names, those people that didn't amount to anything, and they want to include the running backs that did make it. And that's not fair. That's being one-sided of the argument. And I think that to say that an elite talent is easily replaceable is very lazy. And when I say an elite talent, I also mean an elite running back by committee. So if your team is going running back by committee, I think that you have to realize that you still need good talent there. And you can't just say, "Oh, I can easily replace this group and that's good and they're good. I can easily replace them so they have no value." No, it doesn't work that way. You still need good talent. The reason why that leads into my next argument is I believe that is the root of this whole thing, is that it's unfortunate. It's the way that the league is.
You're good.
It's the way that the league is, but it is very unfortunate, and it's a harsh reality for running backs because of that short shelf life, they have the rookie contract, okay? And by the time they're out of the rookie contract, they're around, 26? So they're out of the rookie contract. And so now the teams like the Steelers see them at 26, 27, and they're like, why would I invest long term? So in reality, running backs, if they don't get drafted early on and get a bigger rookie contract, they are pretty much screwed. And then now with Le'Veon Bell, consider this, guys. He is arguably the best running back in the league. Like, is that
Top three.
Yeah, top 3 running back. Like, no matter what you argue, he's a top 3 running back. Some would say the best. The best offer he could get is $10 million less than a wide receiver that's not even in the top 15. One of the guys I follow, John Ledger on Twitter, he's a big draft guy, and he posted a question to all his followers: who are your top 15 wide receivers? Not one of them said Brandon Cooks. So league wide, or like in terms of fan base everywhere, they don't look at Brandon Cooks as a top 15 wide receiver. Right. Now I understand the longevity, and I'm not saying that. My total point is, I'm not saying that running backs should get paid $20 million. Elite running backs should get paid this much money. What I'm saying is, it's unfortunate that Kirk Cousins and a Brandon Cooks can get this much money. Kirk Cousins is getting paid $30 million a year. Okay, $30 million a year. And we agreed, even though we like Kirk Cousins, he's a middle of the road, top 10 to 15-ish quarterback. He's getting paid $30 million a year. And in quarterback, Derek Carr is not too far behind them. They deserve to get paid the most out of any position. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when they're getting paid that much, but the highest paid running back in the league, Devontae Freeman, right now is getting paid $8 million. That disparity is not fair. Is it a harsh reality? Yes. But to say that it's correct, the fact that Devontae Freeman should be getting $8 million and Le'Veon Bell can't even get 15 compared to what the scale is for other positions, I think it's a harsh reality that it's not fair, and it just speaks to the unfortunate situation that playing that position is that they're in.
All right. So here's what I'm going to say, and I'm going to start it with saying I think he should get paid just because he is Le'Veon Bell, because I do think certain guys are the exception. I don't know about an astronomical amount. To compare Brandon Cook's contract to him, I think is unfair, because Brandon Cook's contract is a bad contract. So if a team is going to give a guy a bad contract, I don't think that's fair to use that as a comparison for Le'Veon Bell.
Real quick.
Number two.
Real quick. But the thing is, we've seen bad contracts all offseason. Sammy Watkins.
Right.
And there was
but
Paul Richardson.
It is a passing league.
Oh,
so
is.
People value passing positions. Quarterback. Hey, number one, you talk about Kirk Cousins. It's because the quarterback is the most important position on the field.
Correct.
So I don't think it's fair to bring his in either. I get what you're saying, but you're talking about he got that because it's a short-term, high guaranteed contract for the most important position on the field, and that's the move that Minnesota has everything else in place. Now, it's a different league than it was years ago, where guys like Emmitt Smith and Barry Sanders and these guys would get paid in that short window. That's why these guys need to figure out how to cash in on that early rookie contract. But that being said, because it's a passing league, you're going to see higher contracts, a lot of them bad, given to those positions. It's just the nature of it. And if guys come into the league and they know that they're going to be in the running back position, it's like anywhere else. Unfortunately, you're not going to get paid as much as some of the other guys. It's no different. It's every sport has its position.
Here's the thing,
and
though.
To say unfair or this and that,
but
it is what it is. Those guys have a shorter shelf life.
Here's the thing, though. It is.
You can't ignore the facts of that.
Position, but here's other
So
facts.
to make that commitment is not
the
a
running
smart
back position
move.
Isn't fair. It isn't fair now, and I'm not saying it'll definitely change. I accept the harsh reality. But at the same time, here's another fact. The running back position, there's an article that I just read by, I forget his name, sorry, but it's a writer, very good writer, and he's deep into analytics, and he analyzes he came out with his 2018 NFL preview article, and I read a little bit of it, and it's very good. And one of the stats he says there is most offenses in the league today, they are passing more to tight ends and running backs than wide receivers. Today's league your running back does more than just run. They're as the true elite running backs and the good running backs in this league aren't just runners. They're dual threats, and they are every bit as much of it involved in the passing game as a receiver as wide receivers. Le'Veon Bell could make an argument he is a wide receiver too.
But having
So
those great
why-
wide receivers to open up the field so those guys have those opportunities is a difference in the game now. Here's my thing. It's not always fair, okay? But, again, I look at teams that win championships. First of all, defense wins championships, which is why defensive players get astronomical contracts all the time. Secondly, when I look at championship-winning teams, and there's exceptions, the Joe Flaccos, the Trent Dilfers of the world, most teams that win championships, when you look at the offensive side of the ball, it's quarterbacks and wide receivers and not usually elite running backs. It's usually somebody who, you know, you have your Jerome Bettis at the end of their career who were never really super elite but really good, reliable running backs. It's just the history of the game has shown that you don't need to overpay for a running back. And that's just the way. And winning teams typically don't have to have a superstar running back.
I agree.
They have to have a quarterback, and they have to have reliable, really good wide receiving options. And that's why they don't get paid.
But they also, the position you need, the position itself, even if you don't
You
have
could
a feature
always
back,
argue
you
why the
need
position
a
is
good-
important.
That's what I'm saying.
But a Le'Veon Bell and a J.H.I., to me, that's a pretty big drop-off.
Well,
And,
yeah.
But you can win with a J.H.I. and pay a Le'Veon Bell a hell of a lot less money, and I can then allocate that money to a Carson Wentz or to a Zach Ertz, and that's just the way it is. And instead, I feel like you handcuff by paying these running backs. And then if he tears a fucking ACL or he has anything like that, like they're very susceptible to that. I mean, everybody is, but I just feel like it's a higher risk, and it's a smarter move to allocate that money elsewhere.
There's a lot to unpack with this, so I'll try and do it briefly. Number one, I think we've kind of strayed from the point. Okay, I'll start with Le'Veon Bell.
He
and I'll
should get paid, in my opinion, because he's a rare elite talent that I think has earned it.
Now, just to refresh, say the contract that was offered. Explain the deal that was offered. How much?
$70 million over 5 years.
And compared to Brandon Cooks,
He got like
$10 million less.
and it was $10 million less.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's also remember the facts on Le'Veon Bell's situation, because yes, he's a top 3 running back. He could be number 1, but he's a very interesting case that you cannot. I don't think he should represent the entire running back class because he's very interesting with what he's going through.
Agreed.
He's
Yeah.
been suspended
Yeah.
back-to-back years for substance abuse.
Yep.
That's a thing. He's been injured. He was lost in week 9 a
Fair
few
points.
seasons ago. Major injury. That's a thing. I can put those 3 things together, and I can compare it. It's a bad comparison, but I can compare it to Brandon Cooks, that contract, and I could argue that $10 million less is because of those 3 things. I could do that. If that was the legit comparison.
I agree with you.
Sometimes when you're suspended back-to-back years for substance abuse and you have gone through major injuries, yeah, you're in guaranteed money, and compared to other contracts in which players have not faced that yet, and also in more important positions, I could argue that's why you get less. If I'm the Steelers, and this is where you and I argued a few months ago, I can't look at Le'Veon Bell, great talent, fantastic talent, transcendent, yes. Guaranteed money for that situation? No, hell no. Le'Veon Bell should be wise enough and self-aware enough to look at that situation, look at the deal he got, and say, yes, 5 years for that? Hell yeah. Especially since my case hasn't been necessarily reliable.
I agree.
Number 1, because of injuries. Number 2, self-decisions he's made.
Put it this way. He wants guaranteed money, but hasn't been able to guarantee he's going to be on the field for a lot of different reasons.
You can't guarantee anything with him except for the fact that there's a storyline that doesn't involve football.
Now, what I will say, I hate the franchise tag. And I
Yes.
think that does create that situation for the running. Now, they get paid pretty well in that, the top 3 average salaries,
Top
right?
five.
Or top 5?
Yep.
I think
Top
it used to be 3, now it's 5, right?
No, it depends.
Was it always 5?
No, top 3 is after the second year of the franchise.
Okay.
tag.
So that you're still getting paid a hell of a lot of money on that. But that being said, I hate that it does take away the ability for a guy to go out somewhere else and get the security And I've never been a fan of the franchise tag in football. I think it takes a lot of power out of the player's hands. That said, though, I agree with everything you said.
So this is where I think you and I are going to clash a little bit, Charles. Again, I'm going to preface this by saying I am not downplaying the effect a running back can have in the game, and I do not anywhere close agree with the idiots on Twitter saying they should replace him, because you cannot replace him anytime soon.
No.
It's not happening.
Yep,
Unless you draft some star that's the next Ezekiel Elliott.
Don't give me James Conner.
Yes.
Sorry, don't give me James Conner is going to come in and easily replace Le'Veon Bell.
In their
Stop.
current situation, he's not replaceable. In the next 1, 2, 3 seasons, he's not replaceable.
Correct.
There's going to be a fall-off. So for all the Twitter idiots that believe that, stop watching football.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're not talking about a team that's going to fall into the front end of the draft and have a Saquon Barkley fall into their lap.
Exactly. Thank you.
So with that being said, running backs to me, and I said it a lot during the Eagles season, that's what helped them. Running backs are a perfect complementary position to your offense.
Agreed.
I know people might have, not necessarily you, but I know when I brought that up in the past, people have gotten mad at me for saying complimentary, because that could be like, oh, they're not an important position in their own. No, they're a perfect complementary position for a quarterback. I'll give you an example. When you had Nick Foles in the postseason, and when he was going with the play action constantly, or any team can go with play action constantly, you know what helps that? A good running game, especially a good running back performance. Multiple. That's a huge part of your offense, because if you why do you think Dallas was so good with Ezekiel Elliott and Dak? Why do you think Dak Prescott sucked without Ezekiel Elliott? Because he couldn't rely on the play on the play action. He couldn't do it.
Jared Goff
Yes.
early.
That helps quarterbacks. And aside from that, it takes pressure off of the quarterbacks, because, yes, it's a passing league. Absolutely. I can't disagree with that. But it's not always going to be. You can't ask your quarterback to throw 40, 50 times a game. It's not reliable. It's not sustainable. And long-term, you just can't be an answer.
Right.
So, I will say also, and you kind of hit the nail on the head too, Crum, running backs don't win championships. They don't. I can't even say I actually disagree when you say wide receivers do. I don't think they do either.
They don't.
No, I said that they're more. The way I meant it was they're more of a complementary, more of a necessity than a running back to a quarterback winning a championship.
See, I understand what you
mean. And a defense.
I actually put them on the same level.
Yes.
I
same level.
disagree.
I disagree.
I
because
respectfully
analytics, running backs and tight ends have become such a huge part of the passing game, where wide receiver now has become almost irreplaceable, where you can get cheaper guys on the outside that play specific roles, and
I wish it was like that when we had the James Thrashes of the world.
No, I mean,
well, they're not even. You talk about talent. That's lack of talent.
And not to get off topic, not to get into wide receivers, why they're important or anything, but I can, in recent years, I can give the example of Odell Beckham with the Giants, to where transcendent. You can look at that position, transcendent, not doing anything.
Antonio Brown.
And mainly the Giants are actually a perfect example, because they don't have a running game. They had transcendent wide receiver talent, pretty good. I mean, until last season, he was a pretty good quarterback, Eli Manning. What wins championships is the dual threat of offensive and defensive lines. That's what wins championships.
It's balance.
Yes.
You win at the front line, absolutely.
Yes.
The lines.
Pass rushers, etc.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, bringing it back to the Steelers in a situation where they constantly need to make sure they're protecting the quarterback.
Yeah.
Make sure that they're sustaining the flexibility of improving their offensive line, majorly improving their defensive line and pass rushers, obviously linebackers, etc., because that defense has had holes in recent years.
Yeah.
It's been the only reason why they haven't gone far and won multiple championships. In the case of Le'Veon Bell, who is very outspoken, he's a great player. It's all great. The guy has been said to not be the best locker room guy. He's been suspended back-to-back years for substance abuse policy. He's been injured numerous times. He's been lost in Week 9 for the season, major.
Didn't help his own case.
He's not a good rapper either.
He cannot. I just think it's unfair for people on Twitter to look at that scenario, and not you, Charles, but to say the situation regarding Le'Veon Bell is disrespectful to all running backs, because not all running backs have been suspended. I'll say it again. not all running backs or players have been suspended back-to-back years.
Yep.
Wanted so much, wasn't self-aware enough to realize what he did. That doesn't represent the running back core. That doesn't represent the running back position. That represents one guy, Le'Veon Bell. And if he wants to do that,
he's not a
fine.
good. Sum it up this way: he's not a good face for the argument.
Nope.
He's probably not the ideal guy, and it's not because of talent. It's because of all the extracurriculars after.
Well, I'll tell you this as a preview for the next
I look
couple
at like
years.
a guy like a Todd Gurley or a David
Yes.
Johnson, even though Johnson got hurt last year, and I can
Or
make a
say-
stronger case for the. Well, not even say you're gonna
No,
say,
I'm saying if he pans out the way he's supposed to be, and because he's clean character-wise.
Well, we got to
So,
see
yeah,
still.
yeah.
It's a long way. The NFL changes people, but these other guys, I could make a case for those guys being the face of that argument.
Yes, and I will say as
Davion
well,
is not the guy.
in the coming years, this same situation will happen with another running back. His name is Ezekiel Elliott. This same thing will happen again, and we will bring up,
Jerry's going to pay him, though.
well, that's Jerry's problem.
Jerry's
And
gonna
if he
win.
wants to give guaranteed money to a guy who is
That's
not
what Jerry
guaranteed anything,
does.
listen, Ezekiel Elliott, while different situations,
Yeah.
not reliable enough for long-term guaranteed money.
In
Nitro,
our eyes.
Nitro Freak over here on the YouTube, he says Bell will get paid, just not in Pittsburgh. Agreed, and that's fair
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
teams will pay for him.
Might get
Yeah.
paid here.
He says, to be honest, if I'm the Eagles, I'd take a shot at signing him. Why not?
Jesus Christ, look at us.
Yeah.
If there's an opportunity there and it's not going to handcuff you as far as paying guys in other positions, absolutely.
Yep.
And he says Dak sucked without Zeke. For that fact, he's nothing more than a game manager. Agreed. He says, Ryan, it's Twitter. You can't take people seriously on that app. It's troll
No, I don't
nation.
take-
It's, yeah,
I don't
it's
take-
pretty bad.
No,
I don't take
I
Twitter
agree with
seriously.
you.
I'm just telling
Yeah.
Charles.
Yeah, but Ryan, like
Charles takes it
I actually-
seriously.
I actually like agreed with a lot of what you said. That's my point. Like, I don't want you guys. I don't want to make it seem.
And I'm
like,
just chopped liver?
Well, no, like
Well, fuck
I'm
you.
just saying. Like he's the one that said we actually might clash. But no, honestly, I agree. And
Screw you, Charles.
okay,
I'm done with you.
all right, cool. But what I don't want you to. I don't want to make
Good
it
night, everybody.
seem as though I believe every running back should get paid a lot of money. No, I don't. I know the harsh reality, and it's unfair. My point is it just irks me when people think that running backs don't matter and that who cares if they don't get paid. The fact that Saquon Barkley is the second highest paid running back in the league right now, even though he just signed his rookie deal, that's an issue. Devontae Freeman is the highest paid running back. He's getting paid $8 million. Justin Tucker, the kicker, gets paid more than the running back. So I'm just saying that I think that in views of a lot of people that just cast away running backs and think they don't deserve the right to get paid at least a little bit more than what their contract situation as a whole is right now. That's asinine. Like give
the
them
market should
give
be-
them some money.
No,
Give-
the market should be a little bit higher.
that's
but
what I'm saying. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying. I would never pay a running back $20 million. I'm saying like I would never pay them running back $20 million. My cousin brought that up, and I was like, no, I never said pay him $20-30 million. I'm just saying that the disparity right now for other positions.
We know what you're saying,
even
Charles.
the wide receiver position.
We
and the
got
running
you,
back position,
Charles.
It's so bad. It's
Nitro
so bad.
Freak is getting out of here, I think. He said, keep up the good work, guys. Have a great show. We
Later,
appreciate
Kyle.
it, buddy. Again, check out Kyle. And I think he has a rotation of co-hosts, or he usually has. Kyle and the Hooligans on Saturdays,
Hooligans.
live on a2dradio.com, YouTube,
Hooligans.
Facebook, Periscope, all that good stuff.
Is the H silent?
Hooligans?
Hooligans.
Sure.
Oh, is that? But, guys, let's go no huddle.
Let's do it.
Let's go no huddle.
Who wants to start?
I'm going to start.
Go ahead.
Hashtag fired Matheny.
Woo! I'm so happy for you.
This is a great week for me, guys.
Yeah,
As
I
you
know.
know, if you watch any of the shows and on this show, I very commonly put in there hashtag fire Matheny. The D has been added. About goddamn time.
The DS.
Time to get a real manager in this bitch in St. Louis Cardinals. I know we're real happy, guys. Terrible manager, awful bullpen manager, guy who didn't know what the difference was between being one of the boys and being a manager. He thought he was hanging out with all his buddies. Unqualified guy. When you talk about guys who got a job and had no managerial or coaching experience, that's one of them that never deserved it. Absolutely
Man.
never deserved it, and he can suck it.
You have one, Charles?
So what do I want to? It's DeMarco Murray retired.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
And I think some people were trying to make a case like, is he a Hall of Famer? To me, no. I think that's is what it is. But I think that because of the year that he played here, he gets a bad rap. And I know that he did struggle, and I was very critical of him at times. But at the same time, I don't think he was as bad as some people make him out to be. I actually do appreciate the 1 year he had with us, and plus, trading him helped us move up to get wins.
It did.
So
It did.
So
There was a lot, and what I'll say about him, and I think he proved it with his tenure in Tennessee. And I know Derrick Henry took his spot last year, but there was still something in the tank when he came here, and I in hindsight, the lack of success here, I put on Chip.
Chip Kelly, yes.
I absolutely think he was sold on coming here and being a north and south runner.
Yes.
And Chip and his ridiculous schemes and being the smartest guy in the room constantly ran a guy east to west that couldn't run east to west.
Yeah.
He didn't have the cutback ability. And I look at him and I take that year out. I don't say he's a Hall of Famer. I could see him in the conversation. I don't put him in. Taking out the year from Philly.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't hate the guy for his time here. A lot of people do. They think we got a raw deal.
Yeah.
But if you really look at it, to me it's more on Chip and not him.
Yeah.
And he proved it when he left here and he went to Tennessee.
No, I still like DeMarco Murray.
I still
used
wear
to-
the shirt. I actually
Yeah.
meant to wear it today. I forgot.
I used to get in a clash 2 seasons ago with the guys on my show because I had picked the Titans to be like the next breakout team.
Yeah.
And DeMarco Murray, that was the year DeMarco Murray went there. And
Right.
constantly all season people would disrespect him saying, "Oh, DeMarco," because obviously people were pissed off at him because and I'm like, he's a
Obviously, yeah.
top in that first year in Tennessee, he was a top 3 running back in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was he was number 1
I don't know
at
if I'd
one
say top
point.
3.
No,
but he was up there.
ranking wise, statistics, he was
Oh,
top 3.
statistics.
Yeah, he
Statistics,
was
okay,
ranked
okay.
the top 3.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't say like you're just all time, you know.
Yeah.
No, just statistic wise, he was
Yeah.
number 3.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to look back, 3 years ago, and he
Mm.
was one of the best, one of the best running backs. But it just shows again, not to rehash the running back discussion, but it's a short time in the NFL, especially
short,
if you're
yeah.
on the Cowboys team
Yeah.
that it was literally he was the offense. They ran him into the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
I have 3.
Go
I have
ahead.
3. I want you to
Yeah.
just.
I'm going to have more too. You
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
So
We're
I
just
want
throwing
you
them
guys
out.
to decide which sport I'm starting with. Is it baseball, is it basketball, or is it football?
Basketball.
Basketball? Okay. Josh Harris, you freaking moron. Did you hear what he was talking about last week?
No.
No.
Okay, first off, anyone who has never heard Josh Harris speak before, don't go and listen to him. He is a guy, he's one of the owners of the Sixers, if no one else knows.
He was pretty rough during the Brett press conference.
He's the guy who shouldn't never talk, but he talks the most. He talked during the Brian
He's
Colangelo
really not-
exit.
Yeah.
I mean, God.
He is not. He doesn't have good mic presence.
If I ever thought, if you look up guy to never put up in front of a camera, you go to that and you see a picture of Josh Harris.
Yeah.
Well, after Ben McAdoo.
I'll go. Ooh,
back.
interesting name. We'll talk about him
Yes.
later.
Yes, we will.
Josh Harris tried to say last week on July 8th that LeBron seriously considered us.
Oh, yeah.
Let me
I did
tell
hear that,
and
yeah.
I lost my freaking mind
I
last
did hear that
Wednesday
one,
for
yeah.
an hour.
For what it's worth.
I had to last Wednesday. I ended up because I was so freaking upset with his words.
Yeah.
It triggered me to do like a Josh Harris impression, which I'll not do right now because I regret doing it. But I'm a guy who talked about LeBron to Philly for 10 freaking months, and I regret every second of it because I wasted it.
We all did. But go ahead.
It was fun conversation.
was
It was
fun.
fun, but look at us now. Look at us now. All right, look at us now. I never thought after he went to the Lakers and that all went down, I didn't leave that situation thinking, "Oh, LeBron almost came here. He's here."
good.
No shots in hell, Josh Harris. Let me just tell you right now, if you're trying to lie to the people, all City of Philadelphia, all the NBA fans. And if you want to say that in that meeting, that didn't even include LeBron, by the way, it was LeBron's agents out in L.A., that you
Yes.
had to fly out to see, if you honestly believe that you had a serious shot at landing him, you're an idiot. Because you know what's funny, Josh Harris? What happens not even an hour and a half after that meeting? You know what happened?
They
revealed it. There was a press release. Do you think that press release took 9 minutes? Oh, what happened the night before? I don't know. Their client, LeBron James, met with Magic Johnson at the house for 3+ hours. Josh Harris, stop talking. You're lying. Enough.
Poor Josh.
Oh, Josh.
No, not poor Josh. He asked for it.
I know.
Uh,
So upset.
rest in peace, Ray Emery,
Yeah.
Yeah.
former Flyers goalie.
That's very sad.
Unfortunately drowned, I think, Sunday morning.
Yep.
Really odd circumstances. He was
Yeah.
out there. They were on a boat. His friend had a boat. And it was like they just wanted to have fun and jumped in the water. And everybody came up, and he never did. And then his body surfaced like, I don't know, it was like 4 or 6 hours later
That's so
in the
crazy.
same area. Not really any explanation. I don't know if he hit his head or what. Anyway,
Very strange.
very sad. A well-respected guy in the league. He was a pretty good backup for a while too. He was good for us.
When he was our starter,
He was a
good.
starter. He was a good backup.
Issues with injuries. That's,
Yeah. But anyway, we send our condolences out
Rest in
to
peace.
Ray and his family.
Yep.
And
It's very sad. He's only
yeah.
35.
Yeah, young guy, man.
Dude, like that's not
Dude,
much older than
it's
us.
so
It's
young.
so crazy. So the Hall of Fame, you guys all know that T.O. is not going to the Hall of Fame ceremony. Well, as a response, the Hall of Fame said they're not going to honor T.O. back. And
Good.
I feel
That's
there
my
are some
response to that.
people
Good.
there are some people that are pretty much bashing both of them because they're acting like kids. I'm just, in my opinion, yeah, it's childish still. I think on the part of Hall of Fame, it is to a degree childish that you're playing games with T.O., but at the same time, it's nice to have someone just
Say okay.
clap back at T.O. and be like,
Here's what I would do if I'm the
Fine.
Hall of Fame, because to me, it's, and I've said this a million times, it's about the camaraderie with those guys and having guys over generations that have kind of been in those trenches and a brotherhood.
brother, yep.
I would take all living Hall of Fame members and I would put the decision in their hands. Do we honor him or do we not? And if
No.
they say honor him, then you do it. If the majority says no, that tells you everything you need to know. That's the way I would have handled it.
Uh-huh.
If I was the NFL or the Hall of Fame, I would have handled it that way. But you know what you said too.
Yeah, what are you gonna
Somebody else threw it back at him. I'm okay with that.
do? Yeah.
So we have some breaking news.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Is this going to be
Machado.
news
It's
that Tom's
Machado.
not going to love?
It's Machado.
Per Ken Rosenthal, can report with more certainty Machado to the Dodgers is happening. Among remaining questions, in addition to specifics of return beyond outfielder Yusnel Diaz, how much money, if any, Orioles will send the Dodgers to secure a better package and help ease the Los Angeles Dodgers luxury tax concerns. Ladies and gentlemen, it's over.
I'm sorry.
It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world.
Hear this siren? That's my
You
take
better go
on
find your
this.
bunker and lock yourself up then. I'll stay out here and I'll
I feel
wait
for
for
my
it to
life
come.
right now. Like, I'm scared.
Oh, God. Wait till we text somebody to come down after the show. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Oh, no, he texted me. That's how I
Oh,
found
that's
how,
out.
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. That's how I found out.
Yep.
Okay. You said you had another one.
Oh, good. I get to scream some more. Ben McAdoo.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I know you or Charles was going to bring that one up.
Yeah.
What a fucking dope.
Speaking of guys who
Too
just
bad.
shouldn't speak like ever, Ben McAdoo.
Shit all over the division. Shit all over the fucking Super Bowl champions.
It's just so funny to me, and maybe I'm missing
dope.
something. Okay, I never knew that a guy who was a laughing stock of the league completely ripped apart his organization from the ground up, caused his owner to cause a mid-season conspiracy involving quarterbacks to then get him fired. I didn't know a guy like that was such an expert in handling
Handling success.
pressure and success. I didn't. Wow, I
Oh
did
my
not know that.
God.
So Ben McAdoo, man, you're just creating You're just bursting border. I mean, my God, you're just so ahead of the curve. I didn't know such a failure like you could be such an expert in handling success. How the hell are you going to talk? You're not anywhere in the league. Nowhere.
No one wants
Not even
him.
the Browns want you.
No one wants him.
Not even the Bills want you. Shut your mouth. Go to the CFL if they'll have you. Or, no, I'm sorry, the XFL. Because you might be the head coach there because it's the only place that will hire you.
It's embarrassing.
It's very bad. It's very embarrassing.
Pretty
I think
embarrassing.
the only thing out of everything he said that I do agree with is when he talked about Eric Flowers moving to the other side won't matter because he's a turnstile. That is it. That is the only ounce of knowledge that he spewed in the however many minutes it was where he talked and jabbered on. Like, the Redskins are the Redskins. The Redskins could be better than the freaking Giants this year.
Sure.
All it takes is a few injuries again because that Giants starting roster, although they have a good starting roster, they have no depth at any position. They get hurt at they get a few injuries again, they could be done. And Eli Manning, if Eli Manning proves that he has nothing left, it doesn't even matter. They're not going to do anything. A lot of it rides on Eli Manning still having something left in the tank. And the Cowboys, they still have talent. So the fact that he's shitted all throughout the whole division, it's stupid. And I'm sorry, he just shows, he talked about how he learned a lot of things. Why didn't he learn those things during his coaching tenure?
He's a dumb
you learn
fuck.
it now, and he's making some kind of manifesto.
Oh, well.
Who's gonna read that?
Speaking of manifestos,
I'm not gonna make it. Look at this freaking headline by Bleacher. How freaking dare you?
Oh my God!
Look, show Chrome. Show
I'll
Chrome.
look at it later. I
Look
got
at
it.
the freaking.
Yeah, it's fine.
Toying with me. Go ahead, Chrome.
Listen,
Sorry.
speaking of manifestos, the Sixers' failure to hire Daryl, the direction that the organization wants to go in is back towards the Hinkie mind frame. They went to hire one of his closest disciples, and were obviously rebuffed.
Yeah.
What does that make you guys think? Should we just put the call into Hinkie now and see if we can make this happen?
No,
I might demand for it at this point.
I would love it, but
Clearly that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah, rationally thinking it's not going to happen, but I would love it. I'm not going to deny it.
Listen,
I would love it.
the Eagles went and did it with Howie. They brought Howie back and put him in a similar role than he had previously. Why can't we? Why can't we, guys? We can. Bullshit.
Yeah. All right. My last topic is Darren Sproles officially came out on his. He has a new website.
Did he
for his
now?
on his platform. He officially came out. Even though he has a wife and kids.
Jesus.
It's a new world, man.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything.
That's true. He came out and said that it's officially he's going to be his last year, and he talked about how last season was supposed to be his last season, but then his daughter had told him that Dad, you can't end it like this. You have to play one more year, and that pretty much got him sold. And I think that, I was listening to the Sims and Lefko podcast, which is again a great podcast, and they brought up something. They were talking about Sproles, and they brought up, is he a Hall of Famer? Because he's ranked 5th or 3rd or something like that, right, all time on all-purpose yards, and is that good enough to get in the Hall of Fame? And that's something the topic we talked about, and Lefko was saying, and he was like, the Hall of Fame, the running back position, the way it's evolving, you got to think it's only a matter of time until they change their criteria and kind of give respects to these pass catching backs. And all I can think about is how we talked about that months and months ago, and it's a thing where it might take generations until the Hall of Fame is able to catch up to that mindset and start to recognize these role-playing third-down running backs who had just as much of an impact, just maybe not as a feature guy. But with Darren Sproles, I think that with his last season coming up, we know, and no matter what your expectations of him, I think it's going to be, if it's not going to be a Hall of Fame career, I think it's a very notable career, and you have to you still have to acknowledge him, even though not as a legend or a Hall of Famer. He has to be one of the icons. One of the, he had 5'6".
I mean, I don't know if I'll say icon, but what I'll say is, and I think we've talked about it when I've compared it to the Baseball Hall of Fame and closers and DHs and these guys, the value that they bring to the game, because it's been the life of those positions hasn't been as ingrained into the game as long as the game's been around.
Yeah.
So I think guys who were there who have made great impacts in those positions,
Don't get that.
the early guys will get overlooked.
Yep.
But in time, those guys will be looked at the pioneers who, down the road, 15, 20 years
Top
from
doctors.
now,
Yep.
similar guys, then it opens the door for them to
Totally
get in.
agree.
So I think that's where he's at. He'll be looked at more of a guy who, at
Paved the
his
way.
size, changed the way the position was played.
And that's what I mean by icon.
Yeah.
He's not like he's just someone who's notable that you recognize did this, contributed to this to the game.
One other thing I wanted to throw in before we go off there, and I think Ryan had one more topic.
Yeah.
The Le'Veon Bell structure, this as of like 40-something minutes ago, it was a pretty awful deal, actually, that he was offered by the Steelers. It was only $10 million in guaranteed money.
$10 million guaranteed money.
It was the money you said, 5 years, $70 million, $10 million guaranteed. So it's similar to his last contract that he signed. Now, it did say Bell would have made $33 million over the first 2 years in a rolling guaranteed structure. The number could have increased to $45 million over the first 3 years. But it's essentially the deal would have not been an increase over what he was already making.
Yeah.
That's me surmising what it says here. But I thought that was interesting. That's pretty bad, actually.
10
So
million
I don't blame him for
yeah.
turning that down.
Yeah, I don't blame him either.
Ryan, what's your last topic, buddy?
So to kind of go back to happier times as a Philadelphia Phillies fan,
It was like 15 minutes ago.
I was having a good day earlier. Great day yesterday. I thought it was a handshake agreement. I thought that he was going to be a Philly. A legend in our city is about to retire. Chase Utley.
Oh, yeah. How could I forget about Chase? Fuck.
It's really tough to describe, and we're going to do that tomorrow. Tomorrow we're doing a little something different. We're done talking Sixers. We're going to literally look back on the 2 championships.
Well, I mean, unless you're going to talk about Amir Johnson and Mbijaleka, however you say his name,
he's
not coming.
Yeah, don't even say his
There
name.
ain't nothing to talk about.
We're going to look back on both the 2018 Super Bowl team and the 2008 Phillies team. We're going to
Cool.
look at like that whole
Cool.
thing.
Sounds like a good
Chase
show.
Utley, it can't be described in words how much he meant to this team, how much he meant to this city, how much he did for this city. What I'll ask you guys to do, just briefly, and you're a Cardinals guy too, just kind of briefly sum up, his career, how much, you saw of him, how important he was, not only to the city, but just to baseball.
Well, I mean, when I grew up and played, I was a second baseman, so I've always been partial to second baseman, and I think Chase Utley is probably, in my lifetime, one of my top 5 favorite players to watch. And even though I'm a Cardinals fan, I like to watch the Phillies. I support the Phillies when they're not against the Cardinals. So 2011, I came out a winner in that one. Had to get that one in there. But yeah, sorry. But listen, I mean, Chase is like one of those guys, you love to have him on your team. You hate to play against him. He's a guy that would, if you needed a guy to just get on base, he'd let you plunk him with a pitch. He did all the things on the field. He dove for balls. He got dirty. He was a good hitter. And really just a good guy. Like, he had some questionable moments in his career where you could question, was he a dirty player? And I think people over time, people have made that argument. But, I always looked at him as just a guy who's a hard-nosed dude who comes in every day. He's not about, having the quote of the day or the quote of the week in the media. Just kind of come in, supported his teammates, and always tried to make everybody around him better. And, I don't know that I would put him – I could say I wouldn't put him quite in Hall of Fame. He's probably a fringe guy. But he's truly an icon in this city. And, for a lot of years, he set the standard for second baseman, two-way second baseman. So, good for Chase. I do think he's probably about 2 years a little overdue. How long has he been playing bone on bone in those knees? Um,
Well, definitely the last 4 or 5 years definitely hurt him, not only just all-time rankings, but in Hall of Fame chances.
I just don't think he would have got there. But listen, dude's a gamer. And that's all you can ask for is a guy that's going to show up to the field every day, hustle on every play. A lot of knocks to Jimmy Rollins, who he played next to every day. First of all, it was still very special to watch those two guys play up the middle every day. And he was the guy that ran every ball out and hustled everything. I mean, I look at him in a lot of ways as probably the most one or two most key guys on that World Series team and during that run. Great player. Absolutely
Charles?
great player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Charles is like,
Baseball?
I've heard of Chase Utley. I think he plays baseball.
No, I obviously I know who he is. But no, I do, as someone who just, I'm a very, very, as casual a Phillies fan as there is, I usually only watch playoffs. I was as tuned in as anyone for that World Series run, and I have for every, not just Utley, but for that whole team, they always have a special place. That was the first championship in the city since '83.
Of my lifetime.
So
80.
I still is it.
They lost in 83.
They
They
lost
did
in
make it in
83, okay,
83. You're right.
So
I'm impressed you
know-
knew that they were there in 83. It's progress.
But I still remember. I will always remember a lot of those players on that team, and Utley being one of the main guys. And from what I know, he was a very interesting personality. I know a lot of people said sometimes he came off a little. I'm trying to find the word for it, but at the same time,
kind
he
of
was
passive
still-
or cold.
yes, there you go. Thank you. But in terms of on the field, he gave it all. You can't not love his game. So,
Chase didn't have to be the guy. You had the Jimmy Rollinses there, and you had the Ryan Howards there to provide the sound clips and the Jason Worths. Chase just went out and every day gave you 100%. Didn't matter if he was feeling 50%. He played like he was playing 100%, and I think that he will. For me, my favorite Philly of all time. Absolutely. Yeah. So, guys, great stuff tonight.
good stuff.
Nice little blitz there at the end. Little no huddle offense there.
Kind of like how it worked.
So, again, tomorrow on The Fix, it's going to be awesome. They're going to cover the 2008 Phillies, reflect back on the last season's Philadelphia Eagles. You also have AM and the PM tomorrow. Lazy Booking Hockey Happy Hour on Thursday. Off Friday. Hooligan Saturday. Coming back Monday with Sports Hounds. And then we'll be back with you guys next week. I'll be on the couch for the last time and then I'll have a 2-week hiatus. Ryan looked at me like, the last time?
He's like, what?
Really?
I'm going to Florida, buddy.
Don't leave me with Charles.
So I won't see you for a month because by the time you're back, I'm gone.
I know, Jesus.
Goodbye. A perfect song.
I know it is.
Can I not leave?
Goodbye moment.
I'm not allowed to leave, am I?
Yeah,
Jeez.
maybe. Yeah, well, not while we're gone, buddy.
Yeah.
You're stuck here.
I'm stuck here.
But good stuff, guys. Thank you to our sponsors, Gibson Mayer LLC, our certified public accountant, making yours Gibson Mayer. Stream Smart, Scanzano Sports, coming at you guys live from the Real Talk Studios. Thank you, Charles, for a great show. Mr. Brodo, Mr. I nicknamed myself,
The
for
bro.
producing yet another fantastic show. And, guys, we look forward to talking to you next week.